Good morning, honorable members. Good morning, Minister and your team. Good morning, honorable members.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair.
Good morning, Chairperson.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, Chairperson.
Good morning, Minister and your team. You're welcome to the meeting. I hope I'm audible. Thank you very much for coming to the meeting. There's the agenda on the screen, honorable members. Can we get the mover for the adoption of the agenda?
Move for the adoption, Chair. And also I want to acknowledge that 60 minutes there, if we could try, Chair. I think it's a good thing to have an idea of how much time we're spending on an item. So I think it's a good guide. Let's see how it goes. Thanks, Kolisa, for that.
Thank you, Honorable Zeki, and for the mover for the adoption. Can we get the seconder?
I second, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Malachi.
I third it, Chair.
Oh, thank you very much. Let me take this opportunity to once again welcome you to the Portfolio Committee meeting.
Unknown caller.
And request that before we start with our meeting, as usual, I'm going to invite members to observe a moment of silence and or prayer. Yeah.
Unknown caller.
I've been distracted here, sorry. Thank you very much. Honorable members, you're welcome to the meeting. We have 3 hours for this meeting as allocated by Parliament. I'm going to request that we help one another in managing time properly. And I'll continue to guide how we should handle the issues. And we are going to hand it over. Before we hand it over, let me acknowledge apologies, colleagues, through yourself.
Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning, members and guests. I only have one apology from Ms. Buthelezi. Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Buthelezi, we're still wishing her speedy recovery. And on behalf of the committee, we have sent flowers and message. And Ms. Buthelezi had responded, welcome that, and we wish her a speedy recovery. On the agenda today, we have invited the department and the entities that are on the agenda to come and brief us on the stabilization process. As you would remember that there were some issues with HDA, and we took a decision that the department must involve herself in making sure that there is stability in HDA. We are now going to invite the minister, and let me take this opportunity again to welcome the chairperson of HDA and the chairperson of practitioner, what is the new name for EAAP?
Property Practitioners Registration Authority.
What?
Yeah.
Property Practitioners Registration Authority.
Registered authority, yes. And the chair, you're welcome, and I will allow the minister to introduce them. And we want to congratulate the minister for having moved with speed in appointing the boards into these two entities. Minister, goodbye. You're welcome, and your team can take us through.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning to you. Good morning, honorable members. Good morning to the Deputy Minister, Board Chairperson, Mr. Stephen Ngubeni and Dr. Rachitanga, the CEOs, and as well as the DG and team. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Chair. I did submit my apology. It is a cabinet day. I do have a matter. Actually, I'm likely to be called now. I have a matter that I'm presenting in cabinet. So, as you know, we are required constitutional to attend cabinet. I felt that let me come and address the portfolio committee and engage with members of the committee on this matter, and I hope I can be excused to go back so that we are able to present our matter in cabinet. First issue, appreciating the request to come and present. We will take members of parliament through what we have been doing as the portfolio in terms of stabilizing both PPRA and as well as HDA. Let me start with PPRA. On PPRA, Chair and members of the committee, what we have done, as you know, we've appointed all the boards by the 1st of November. Both the boards have been appointed. I've received the report. The chairs are here, can take us through in terms of what they are doing on their part as the accounting authorities in those institutions. But we have ensured that as they come in, they are inducted. They will take you through the presentation through DDG Ngongo in terms of the presentation on what has been done on that. Secondly, it's the issue of Chair ensuring that we build a relationship with stakeholders. I have, as the minister, met with stakeholders, including those that we have previously found ourselves in court, to try and ensure that we are on the same page on issues, reduce the risk of litigation between ourselves and the sector, which we have agreed, for example, with institutions such as Ribosa, that they will engage the board. They will give the board an opportunity to settle. They'll give an opportunity to board to look at the issues previously raised, operational things that, for example, they would have been frustrated about, and flag it with the board so that the board can deal with. But what we have done in the process of appointing the board, we've ensured that people who are members of the sector, who are practitioners themselves, are members of the board so that they can help us deal with the issues that previously they would have been frustrated about. So out of those conversations, there's been confidence that we are on the right track. and also commitment of working together and making sure that we get more out of court. So it's work in progress that we are doing. On issues around stabilization, I must say again, on PPRA, you would have noted previously, there would have been quite a number of allegations, reports in the media, and all this. Those reports, for example, or allegations that have landed on our desk, which was one specifically in relation to PPRA, I have forwarded to the board for the board to process and deal with. This was coming from the Public Service Commission, and that is being dealt with by the board. So our priority, members, is to stabilize, ensure operational efficiencies, ensure that there is brand management and brand protection for our entities. So part of the issue there is to ensure that in what we are doing, we ensure that there is good governance practices. Where there are allegations made, we can investigate, but we also make sure that it's relevant authorities that needs to deal with those. I have found in the portfolio that at times there's misunderstanding of the role of the executive authority, where you find people wanting the minister to get involved even on minor things, junior officials in the entities, which would have result or even reflect as interference by the executive authority. So that we continue to try and ensure that it's not something that is actually done. So the team will take us through in terms of that. I have met with the board, instructing them to ensure that there is stability, where there are vacancies, they fill the vacancies, but also with their induction to ensure that they understand PFMA and what needs to be complied with. Last year on PPRA as well, I dealt with the issues around their annual performance plans. We've gone through, we've given feedback and ensured that what we would have to present in Parliament is what we can all take responsibility for. On HDA, just from my side as well, is that, as you know, we have appointed the board. Stability that the board chair is here will go into detail in what they are doing as the board in stabilization and following on what we have given them as a mandate. There's been clear instruction to HDA to ensure that we stabilize as well. We rebuild the brand. We also ensure that executive positions have been filled. Yesterday, we have received a submission from the board with recommendations and requests for concurrence for the appointment of the CEO and the CFO. That will be processed. Once it's processed, announcements will be made. We are comfortable because at least this gives us, though initially I gave all the boards that have CEOs vacancies to say they must present that by end of February, but we are happy that this progress has been made and we should be able to move faster in terms of ensuring that there is stability in terms of leadership. Chair, you would note in that will highlight some of the concerns, I must say. And again, in terms of HDA, we have a brand that is damaged. A lot of work has to be done. It's not going to be overnight. And I must say, colleagues, sometimes I feel the public, especially in the media space, there is unfair pressure or unfair expectation from the boards, where sometimes it's not even recognized that these boards don't even have 6 months. And there's expectation that things must move to a particular direction that might even compromise the processes themselves, might even compromise the work of the entities as well. I'm saying this because there's been, since day one I arrived in the portfolio, there's been quite a lot of allegations. Some would come through media, some will come through one or two. One came with a WhatsApp, which was very extremely worrying, because it was some official who wrote a WhatsApp that was just something else. And then you have those that would write in terms of whistleblowers. So we have one whistleblower that we've asked for the board to ensure that they protect, but also ensure that they follow whistleblower laws to be able to investigate and have a conversation with the individual, which the board has already done. We might not go into detail, honorable members, on some of the investigation because they're still pending. But what we can assure is that will come once the reports have been done. Our commitment in the last time I was here was that during quarterly briefings, quarterly performance briefing when we come, we'll account fully in terms of the investigations, the recommendations on the audit. So that as part of what we call, what is it that we are doing to respond to the issues that have been raised in terms of other investigation. But part of the issue is that we will be doing a full media briefing this week in terms of the portfolio, announcing new policy developments that are coming into effect of the 1st of April. But again, looking at what are the developments on the portfolio. My interest is to ensure that the board is not derailed from focusing, or all the boards are not derailed from focusing on the work at hand and getting the service to the people, rather than more focused on investigation, because I don't think they have the capacity and no. Is that what we want them to focus? So we will announce a mechanism that we'll deal with in the portfolio in terms of this, because I do think that at some point there is a need for us to ensure that there's stability. What we are dealing with as we deal with the stability, we have incidences or even some insinuation where you'd find that the sentiments you'd find is entities with individuals who've seen boards come and go, who've seen CEOs come and go, and they become so complacent. It happens even in departments where you find people who've seen ministers come and go, and they become so complacent. So even when you want to turn around, members must understand it's not an easy task. Change is not easy, but we've got to do it because it's important. We've got to get everything back on track, systems on place, so that they can work for this government, they can work for the people of South Africa. We've got to be able to put processes in place that gives us results, that gives us output, because the important thing is not whether we are compliant in terms of whether we get clean audits, but it's about also, that is important, but it's about making sure that we are able to make the impact and turn the lives of South Africans around. This is a portfolio that is in the call phase of service delivery, and it's important for us to do that. So there are quite a number of things that are pending. That would request that we are allowed in terms of the investigations. Allegations, members would have seen that some of the papers would have reported about allegations against the COO, allegations against the CEO, and many other members of the executive in HDA, which we do believe that we have to deal with, but we must make sure that they do not derail us from focusing on doing the work, because part of the issue as well is that you find that you get a lot of rumors, get a lot of information. So we do appeal as well where people, especially members of the public, if they do have information that is valid, that has evidence, we would love to have it so that we can deal with it once and for all. But my focus and my instruction to the board is that we would want them to focus in making sure that the entity becomes a developer of choice in terms of HDA. The reputation that HDA has of the past, it's something of the past that we don't go on with. And we do know that change is not easy as you go. People will want to resist and continue with what they've done. So with those few words, Chair, allow me to request both the chairpersons just to, or maybe just ask DDG Ngongo to take us through the presentation, but immediately request Chairperson Ngubeni and Chairperson Rachitanga to make inputs in addition to what we are presenting today from their side as boards. What is it that they are doing to augment what we have given them as a responsibility? Thank you very much, Chair. I will be here for about an hour, Chair. As I said, I would want to be released if members agree, so that I can be able to present the item we have as human settlements in Cabinet today. But also my Deputy Minister is here, who is also affair with the issues and is comfortable to deal with some of the issues. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Ngongo.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Members, Honorable Minister, Honorable DM, DG, and the colleagues, good morning. I will take the committee through the presentation on what the department has done as interventions in order to stabilize the Housing Development Agency and the Property Practitioners Regulatory Authority. Honorable Chair, I must say Minister has covered some of the slides that I have. I will not repeat them. The table of contents, it's an indicative of what will be presented. Purpose of this meeting is to present to the Portfolio Committee the interventions undertaken by the department to stabilize the HDA and the PPRA. Next slide. Let me also indicate, Honorable Chairperson, that I will take the presentation as read. Just one bullet on this slide is that the intervention that we have done, it was in response to the board that was dissolved in 2019 in July, because cabinet concurrence was not obtained. Then we had interim board and we had two administrators in between. The next slide. The next slide, please. The importance of this slide, Honorable Chair, is the one before that. Thank you. The importance of this slide is in terms of the compliance that as a department we had to go through when we appointed the board. The minister has already indicated that the first priority in stabilizing these two entities was to actually appoint the board. So in terms of the compliance, we had to make sure that we comply with the legislation, enabling legislation for the HDA, which talks to how do we appoint the board and how many board members, and also the importance of appointing those representatives from other departments, as their contribution to human settlements is quite critical. The next slide. In terms of the compliance, also, Chair, is that we had to advertise in the two print media, and including the Gazette. So this is what we did when we advertised the board of the HDA, with the closing date being the September 2021. The next slide, please. The next slide takes off from the term ended by the last administrator, which the end date was the 25th of November 2021. And the new board was appointed by the minister through cabinet concurrence with effect from the 26th of November 2021. And this board has been appointed for a period of 3 years. This board is led by Dr. Rachitanga as the chairperson, and the deputy chairperson is Ms. Dumagude. This is also in compliance with the enabling legislation. Let me also highlight the importance of having a representative who is Mr. Makan from the Department of Agriculture, Rural Development, and then Reform representative. It's quite critical for us at the HDA to have a representative from this department, as we know that human settlements requires a lot of land in order to advance the portfolio objectives. And also in particular, also with the appointment of the representative from the Department of DPWI, also we need to have access to that portfolio of a public portfolio that DPWI is managing to advance the human settlements mandate. So both representatives of these two departments have been appointed. The next slide, slide number 9. Slide number 9, Minister has already spoken to this slide. Let me not repeat what the Minister have said in terms of the appointment of the CEO and the CFO. The next slide. Also here, Minister did touch on the rebranding of the HDA. I will talk to the second bullet, which responds to the organizational structure. Now that we have done the strategy in terms of the strat plan and the APP, then the structure also needs to be considered so that the HDA is positioned correctly to undertake the responsibility that needs to be done. Let me also indicate, Chair, that in addition, the department also has scrutinized the strategic plan and the APP of the HDA with the minister in order to make sure that the targets that we have, they are aligned with the priorities of the minister. And also there is alignment of our entities, strat plan and APP, to the department and that of the sector. And I must also then, the next slide talks to the attendance of the AG recommendations and other investigation reports. Minister has already spoken to the investigation reports, and the recommendations of the AG are being fully dealt with by the entity concerned. Let me talk to the last slide in terms of the funding model. Honorable Chairperson, we know that the HDA does not get any capital funding from the fiscus, so it means they need to also look at other alternatives in terms of how do they fund their mandate. It is still an early conversation with the department and the National Treasury in trying to find out, in trying to respond to the funding model and the framework that will include PPP, and also how does HDA can get funding from the fiscus. But again, here we start from the rebranding of the HDA and the performance of the HDA, so that the performance speaks for itself. Thank you. Next slide. Next slide, Honorable Chair. This is now in relation to the Property Practitioners Regulatory Authority. This is a new entity which is replacing the Estate Agency Affairs Board that had been that have been around for more than 40 years. I will highlight the last bullet there, which talks to the proclamation and commencement of the PPRA Act and the regulations that were published in the Government Gazette with the commencement of the 1st of February 2022 by the State President. This is the process that we had to undertake. The next slide. I will talk to the next slide. Can you skip this one? I will combine both slides. Slide number 19, Honorable Chair. It's talking to the composition of the board, which I've covered in the background. I want to highlight here that in terms of the executive, the board, the Chief Executive Officer of the PPRA also serves as a member of the board by the virtue of holding that office. This next slide, which is slide number 14. The importance of this slide, Honorable Chair, also speaks to the compliance matters. As a department, we need also to make sure that the minister does appoint the nomination committee, which will facilitate the appointment of the boards and make recommendations to the minister. This process is also in terms of good governance, and it's also in line with the DPSA handbook on the appointment of persons on boards. I've already spoken to the publishing of the advert. It's the same as the HDA. The next slide, it talks to the appointment of the new board, which is led by Mr. Ngubeni as the chairperson. And Chair, I will not read all the members that are there, but also I will then highlight the representatives from the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. That is Mr. Gilbert, and also the representative from the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, which is DPW. As we know also that HDA does a lot of work, a lot of interaction with the land. So this representative also needs to assist us in facilitating some of the processes in order for the HDA to meet its mandate. The next slide is in terms of the filling of the executive positions. Minister has spoken to this one. In terms of the PPRA, there's one executive position which is vacant, which is the CFO, and this matter is being attended to the board. It is attended to by the board. The next slide. The next slide, Minister has touched on the AG recommendations and the whistleblower. Let me speak to the improved stakeholder engagement. As this is the new entity with the expanded mandate, it's very critical that the entity needs to improve in the stakeholder engagement, and also to take cognizance of all the inputs that will be forthcoming from the key stakeholders. Some of these key stakeholders, actually, they are internal in terms of the sector. For example, the PPRA also, as its mandates, also includes the estate agents. It becomes critical that there needs to be an engagement between the NHFC in terms of the fleece program, in terms of how how the target market get access to the fleece product. What estate agents are they also diverse as required? And that interaction engagement needs also to take place between the two entities as this process unfolds. Also, the awareness of the new act, this is going to be critical going forward. And also what we are doing in terms of the department, in terms of the awareness, is that this entity also does attend the ministerial events, so that also they get to be known, and also they get to see what happens on the ground in terms of the human settlements. And also in terms of the communications forum, Honorable Chair, we do have a communications forum for the sector, and both entities also are part of that structure, so that the communication is aligned. There are no misstatements between the department or in the sector. And in addition to that, Honorable Chair, both entities also, they get represented in our legal forum, where all the legal engagements in the sector, they take place. We have just enhanced the representatives in the legal forum to include the company secretaries, based on the role that they play in those entities. The last bullet, Honorable Chair, focuses on the economic transformation and the support for the sector that we need to undertake. It is also important for us to highlight that when the PPA was drafted, there's a whole chapter which is on transformation, chapter 4 of the Act, because it had become evident that without economic transformation, it means the historical disadvantage will remain in that same position. So in terms of the economic transformation and the support of the sector, the department also supports the entity in terms of information and how to implement the transformation. This also includes the support to the designated groups that both the entities, Strat Plan and APP, they do have for the targets that talk to the contracts that will be awarded to the women-owned entities, which is 40%. And then the contracts that will be, in terms of the budget, will be awarded to the youth-owned entities, which is 10%, between 10% and 30%. And also those entities that are owned by persons living with disability, which is 5%. And I must also indicate here, Honorable Chairperson, that this transformation also, it's in line with the pronouncement that the President made in terms of supporting these designated groups. The next slide. The next slide speaks to the induction of the new boards. The minister appointed 5 new boards, and these 2 are part of the 5. Let me also indicate that the minister met all the new board members in order to communicate her expectations, set the tone and the direction, and also the members of the new boards also shared their experiences and their expectations, so that they are much clear on the marching orders. The next bullet also talks to the induction that we are expected to facilitate as a department for all the boards that have been appointed. And all the boards were attended a 2-day induction course, which is presented by National School of Governance in December 2021. This is quite critical also to elevate the work of the National School of Government as part of government, because the training that you get there as induction you cannot get it in the private sector. So it is also quite a specific training that they were inducted on. And in addition to that, new opportunities also then emerged in terms of the training of the boards or even the staff members of the entities to attend the courses that are run by the School of Governance. I must indicate lastly here, Chairperson, that we have received very favorable comments on the induction from the board members. The last slide, Honorable Chairperson, in closing, we are recommending that the Portfolio Committee notes the interventions that have been taken by the department to stabilize the Housing Development Agency and the Property Practitioners Regulatory Authority. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, DDG Ngqongqo. Let me welcome the two chairpersons and their CEOs. We'll request them to just show their faces so that members can see them, and then they can close the cameras. Can we start with the Property Practitioners Regulatory Authority Chair?
Chair, this is Stephen Ngubeni, the chairperson of the PPRA.
You can proceed. You can proceed, Chair, in terms of what is it that you're doing in terms of the issues of transformation in the, or hand it over to your CEO.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Good morning to the members of Parliament who are also members of the Portfolio Committee, the Minister, the Deputy Minister, and the team from the department, our colleagues from HDA, the CEO, also of the PPRA. As I've just indicated, my name is Stephen Ngubeni. I chair the PPRA. We are appearing before the Portfolio Committee today to make a presentation on the work that we do. So with me is the CEO, Ms. Mamadou Mushala, who is going to be going into the details of our presentation. And by way of introduction, and perhaps to piggyback on the comments by the Minister earlier on, as well as the presentation that was done by DDG just now, I will make a few remarks and then await the opportunity for the CEO to make the full presentation. The PPRA board was appointed in November last year, and upon its appointment, it was expected to immediately deal with the transitional issues, transitioning from the erstwhile EAAB to the PPRA. And that has been a journey, quite a journey, and it is still in continuation because it talks to not only to the name change, but also the change in terms of the mandate, the extent of the mandate, as well as issues of change management that we have got to deal with in the organization. And we are on it, we are busy attending to all those issues. Now, whilst also dealing with this transitional arrangement, we were also expected to deal with the corporate plans, which includes the renewal of the strategic plan, the APP for the last 2 months of existence of the EAAB, as well as the new APPs. We have done that successfully. However, because we appreciated the amount of time that was at our disposal, we resolved to do the best that we can with the corporate plans and then still allocate ourselves further time to deal in detail with those plans once and for all. So we are in that process. We have held our strategic planning session. We have identified the areas that really requires our attention for us to be in motion in terms of the new mandate. So we believe that we are making quite good progress. However, because of some of the challenges that the EAAB had faced in the past, including amongst others the findings from the AG, litigation issues that existed in the industry, the question of trust deficit, public trust deficit, as well as the reputational damage on the brand EAAB itself, as well as the perceived inefficiencies in the organization insofar as the turnaround times are concerned. We then resolved to put in place some kind of a turnaround strategy, which is work in progress. And that turnaround strategy includes, amongst others, meeting with the stakeholders, understanding their issues, where they come from, what causes the conflict between them and us, and what are the issues that we really don't need to be fighting over, and find some common ground. We have met with some of them in the industry. We have met, for example, with Rebosa, and we've discussed a lot of litigation issues that they have against the board. We've come to a conclusion to say there is a possibility for us to even settle these matters out of court and begin to engage properly as partners in the property sector, and they're quite amenable to working with us in that spirit. So the issues that would have existed and led to litigations, according to their view and our view, are not really issues of real conflict between us. So we are dealing quite decisively with the issues of litigation, and we continue to meet the stakeholders in the industry to make sure that there is a working relationship between the PPRA and all the stakeholders. Another thing that constitutes the turnaround strategy relates to reputational damage, as I have said. That is in the media out there. A lot of reports that have gone out in the media, which are also not real and tangible issues that we are dealing with, but it's just a smearing of the organization, which sometimes originates even from inside the organization and from disgruntled stakeholders. And some of our actions themselves, they are not assisting in the process. So what we are basically we realize the extent of this impact when we had to deal, for example, with the cover for the board members. And when the insurers, they told us that actually the reputation is not quite good, so we can't even consider insuring or covering the board members in relation to the decisions that you guys take. We then realized that we've got quite an uphill to climb, and that's why we're paying serious attention on those issues. So we have put in place a strategy to assist us turn around the perceptions in relation to the organization. There is one specific matter that was referred to the minister by the Public Service Commission. It's a complaint against the CEO, and that specific matter has been forwarded to us as the board. We are attending to it and following all the due processes to come to the logical conclusion. We have had an interaction with the CEO insofar as getting an explanation on these issues, and the board met ultimately and considered the responses from the CEO And we have taken quite decisive measures to address this matter once and for all. And I believe that at this particular point in time, we are not at liberty to fully disclose what are the decisions that we have taken, but you can rest assured as members of this portfolio committee that this matter is receiving our utmost attention, and within the confines of the law. We understand that there would be excitement around this issue, and that people will be impatient in terms of what needs to be done. But that will not assist the process necessarily. So we would appeal with everybody to work with us so that we really unravel what is what insofar as these issues are concerned. We have taken cognizance as the board that part of the scope extension of our mandate deals with a specific focus on transformation, the transformation of the property sector in general. And to that extent, the legislation also empowers us to establish a property sector transformation fund, as well as have a very formidable property transformation program. We will deal with that later in detail in terms of our presentation. And we will also address the question of the fund itself and where the sources of fund will basically come from. But we're glad to indicate that as we are engaging with the stakeholders, we are getting a positive feedback and willingness to cooperate with us insofar as the transformation agenda that is bestowed upon the PPRA is concerned. So it's a journey that we believe we will be able to navigate quite efficiently. The last issue that the legislation gives us to attend to as a matter of a new mandate extension has got to do with the establishment of a property research center, a center that will focus on all research issues around the property sector. And our intention really is to focus on these topical issues that will help us fast-track transformation of the sector itself, to look into the opportunities that will be there in the expansion towards the township economy, in giving access to the previously disadvantaged individuals to also participate meaningfully in the industry. Our statistics as they stand insofar as the estate agents only is concerned is not quite an exciting picture. If you look at the race representation and you look at the geographic and gender representation. So those are issues that we believe that our research efforts should first and foremost focus on. And the rest of the other issues, really, we are expanding in detail in terms of the presentation that the CEO is going to be making before yourselves here today, Chairperson. So with those few notes, allow me to step off from the podium, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
CEO.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members. Good morning, Minister. Good morning, Deputy Minister. Good morning, DG, DDGs, and other colleagues present. Could I request that the presentation please be projected? It was sent in advance to the department. If I could request that it be projected, then I can start speaking to the presentation.
Apologies, Chair. I thought we will allow Dr. Rachitanga as well to speak before we go to the presentation by PPRA, so that we deal with the issues around stabilization of the entities.
Okay, I thought because of time, I thought we'll finish with the PPRA and then we'll go into Dr. Rachitanga, because the discussion, we're going to take them, all of them at the same time. Maybe let's give Dr. Rashdanga as the CEO and the team are flagging their presentation in the meantime. Dr. Rashdanga.
Honorable Chairperson and Portfolio Committee, honorable members. Good morning, Minister and Deputy Minister of Human Settlements, and the DG, the DDGs, and colleagues at PPRA, the Chairperson, as well as the CEOs and other staff. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to appear before the Portfolio Committee after we had been appointed as the new board of the Housing Development Agency. As members may be aware, the Housing Development Agency is a very strategic implementing agency within human settlements. It is charged with a major responsibility of identifying, acquiring, assembling, and packaging land parcels for the purpose of development of integrated and sustainable human settlements in our country. It is an agency that supports government in its endeavor to transform the spatial settlements in our country and deal with the distortions that have been inherited from previous experiences and the legacy of the past. Indeed, as the minister had indicated, this entity, we came in as the new board in the middle of November last year and found an ailing organization that was mired in quite a number of challenges. Some of those challenges had arisen as a result of non-compliance to governance protocols because of the instability that had been taking place over the years as a result of the lack of existence of a stable board. The organization was run by administrators, a few of them, as well as some interim boards. And this had created a culture of trust deficit within the organization, which is why I think we see a lot of media inquiries and reports where some of our disgruntled staff opt to go out of the organization to air their grievances. These are some of the challenges that we came to confront when we were appointed, as well as consecutive qualified audits from the audits of previous years. We obviously also dealt with the issue of high turnover of senior executives in the organization. All of this would have contributed to the instability that faced the new board to deal with. We received quite clear marching orders from our minister from whence we were appointed, which emphasize and complement the mandate of this board from the act that governs the Housing Development Agency. Among others, we had to deal with the stabilization of governance in the organization, and that meant that we had to swiftly establish the board committees so that the organization could be managed through proper oversight, governance oversight by the board. We moved swiftly to establish the Audit and Risk Committee, the Social and Ethics Committee, the Remunerations and Corporate Support Committee, as well as Land Development, Management and Investment Committee. Those committees were quite instrumental in stabilizing the organization. Way the site is provided on the various functions of the organization. We also had a very clear directive that we have to urgently begin the process of recruiting for the vacancies of senior executives in the form of the CEO and CFO. And we are happy to inform the Portfolio Committee that as of yesterday, we have sent the board's recommendation of the successful candidates of those two senior executive positions. And it will now be in the hands of the minister to take forward in terms of finalization of the appointment, as it is a requirement that the minister has to provide concurrence for that appointment. Insofar as the qualified audits and audit findings are concerned, the board has also been giving oversight on the implementation of the audit findings action plan. Out of the 28 audit findings that we would have found, so far 17 of them have been dealt with. And we are now observing very closely the implementation of all the findings, so that when we begin the process of the coming audit, we make sure that at least we aim at receiving an unqualified audit. Some of those audit findings would have led to investigations, both internal in the organization and externally. They are investigations that have been dealt with by the SIU, and those are in the courts. I believe that in some of the matters in the next coming months, the court will be hearing the matters, because they will have been flagged by the findings that came out of those audits. And this is the matters that the minister was saying that at the right time, when the processes are completed, they will also be shared with the outcomes will be shared with the portfolio committee. There are internal investigations that would also have been undertaken as a result of some of the wrongdoing or lack of following of proper procedures and protocols, as well as in the procurement space. And I can assure portfolio committee members that we take those concerns very seriously, and our reports are satisfactory that the organization is dealing with them. If some of the staff members that had been implicated have had to leave the organization because of the investigations and disciplinary processes that have taken place. There are also grievances that we deal with from time to time. We're in conversation with the union and processing all the grievances that they may have. All of this is in an endeavor to stabilize the culture of the organization, to believe in the internal procedures and protocols, so that we can end the culture of running to the public domain in order to address problems. The organization had also been in an all-round low in terms of performance. When we came in as the new board, and the minister was quite worried about the level of low performance, and we instituted a performance turnaround strategy and plan, as well as a performance turnaround operation center that is in place, looking at projects that were having challenges of performance being supervised by one of our subcommittees of the board. The minister would have indicated as well that as a result of all this instability, the organization suffered a serious blow to its reputation and image. And we were directed by the minister to rectify that, as a result of which we have been undertaking road shows in provinces to meet with our various stakeholders and clients, but also to appraise ourselves as the board of the projects that are taking place on the ground, so that we do not only rely on the reports that we receive from our executives, but we have first-hand experience of what is happening on the ground. This is an ongoing process of continuous interactions with all the critical stakeholders that are affected by our work. There is also a process of reviewing the structure of the organization. This is a process that was already underway. The result of the observation that the old structure that was in place was instituted when the organization was formed in 2009, but the organization has grown in leaps and bounds, and therefore it needs to be recalibrated so that it becomes fit for purpose. It has the correct skills and competencies in place, and the number of staff, human capital, to support its work. So we are in the process of reviewing that organizational structure, which we are consulting with our minister about after we have stakeholders within the organization. We believe that part of this process will also be a very critical change management process that should result in turning around the organizational culture and improving dependence and trust in the organization by all our staff members. We have also had to deal with transformation because we are part of an industry that itself has challenges of transformation, especially insofar as the empowerment of designated groups, women empowerment, youth empowerment, the empowerment of persons living with disabilities is quite central in our oversight of how the HDA conducts its work. And we have got targets in place to make sure that in the procurement and implementation of our work, we focus on the empowerment of these various vulnerable groups that have been discriminated against in the past. But the transformation doesn't end there, Honorable Chairperson. We also have a very serious contribution to a vast construction industry, which itself is not very well transformed. So part of our work is interaction with the industry to ensure that they contribute towards enterprise development and boost the involvement of previously disadvantaged people in the industry utilizing our work. Transformation in our space also deals with the type of innovations that we use for the implementation of human settlement development. So we are very keen on investigating alternative building technologies that can result in savings in the fiscus in regard to the amount of money that is spent. Some of the technologies, we believe that it will create savings, but it will also bring about different quality of the products that we produce as an organization in human settlement. The HDA, the DDG Ngongo would have indicated, has been relying so much currently on work that is sourced from provinces and metros, whereby we assist them with the implementation of their human settlements programs, and we generate a fee out of that. This is unsustainable. And so we are very much aggressively implementing a transition towards the primary mandate of our developer status as a developer of choice. We are in conversation with the minister, who's been very supportive on alternative ways of capitalizing the HDA so that it can become a financially self-sustainable entity that can indeed fulfill its mandate of integrated and sustainable human settlement. Fortunately, we have been made the custodian of ownership or possession of land that belongs to the state. We are continuously being given land that is in the ownership of public works as well as other state organs, which we then package for human settlement purposes. And this we are doing so that this can become our own portfolio of human settlement development that will ensure that the organization has a lasting stay into the future. But this also allows us to target land parcels that are located in environments that we believe are still affected by spatial distortions, so that we can play our role of contributing to the transformation of our spatial settlements in the country. So some of the projects that we have are deliberately located in environments where we still have exclusive dynamics, and we want to bring about inclusive living in those spaces. Lastly, let me say, Honorable Chairperson, that we work in a human settlement portfolio with other sister agencies. We have seen the need to collaborate with them and have begun a process of engaging with all of them so that we can benefit from leveraging from our different vantage points. We have been meeting with all our agencies, starting with SHRA, and we will be going on to engage with all our other sister agencies, NHFC, NHBRC, and the PPRA. And we will soon create a forum of all of these agencies so that we can together continuously strategize on how we can impact positively this environment of human settlement. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Those are just my remarks in addition to the presentations that have been made. And we appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rashdanga. CEO, Mema Mutupi.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chairperson. As I already said, good morning, honorable members. Good morning, Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable DG, DDGs, our colleagues from HDA, Chairperson of HDA, Chairperson of PPRA, CEO of HDA, and good morning to all other colleagues that are in attendance. Can I please request that the presentation be projected so I can then speak to the presentation? If we can maybe be given presentation rights, we can then project it from our side. If there's a difficulty with finding the presentation.
Hello, Chair. I've given the rights to Mamudupi and also Refiwe.
Thank you.
Hello.
Sorry, Chair, there was just a bit of a network cut. We're projecting in 2 minutes, Chair. Chairperson, it's loading. Wow, it's almost there. We're just loading it. It's just taking a minute.
Hello, Chairperson.
Okay, it should reflect now.
There's no presentation here. Is Colisa, can you help?
There's a hand, Chairperson. Paul wants to say something.
Who?
There we go, Chair. It's reflecting now.
Okay.
May I proceed? Okay. Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you to all the honourable members, the Minister, the Deputy Minister, the DG, the DDGs, the colleagues from HDA, and the Chairperson of the PPRA Board and the Chairperson of HDA. Chairperson, we're pleased to be presenting to the committee our initiatives in terms of the transformation agenda that we are going to be putting in place for the Property Practitioners Regulatory Authority. First and foremost, it's important to indicate that the Property Practitioners Regulatory Authority falls under the Department of Human Settlements, and it is an institution that is set up in terms of the Property Practitioners Act number 22 of 2019, and that the Act was given an effective date of the 1st of February 2022, and we are a new institution that's brand new out of the box, and we have been in place now for a month and a half. In terms of the presentation that I will be speaking to today, I will obviously be concentrating on the transformation agenda, transformation programs, and specifically what are the pillars and what is the basis and mandate that we have in order to deal with issues of transformation. In terms of the Property Practitioners Act under Chapter 4, it is very specific that we need to transform, and the Act has dedicated an entire chapter to transformation and has put in place all the transformation programs and agendas that need to be put in place in order to facilitate transformation. I will obviously be speaking to all the programs that we have in place that speak to the requirements of the Act, but I'll also be speaking to some of the other programs that we have had to put in place in order to make sure that we have a comprehensive transformation agenda. What is our legislative mandate? The legislative mandate of the entity emanates obviously from the fact that the PPRA states there that we need to regulate, educate, transform, and make sure that transform in relation to the activities of property practitioners in the public interest. So that is our mandate in terms of the Act. The Act also states that we have an obligation to regulate, maintain, and promote standards of conduct of property practitioners. We issue fidelity fund certificates. We put in place standards of education and training. We investigate complaints, and we manage and control the fidelity fund. With regard to our strategic objective from a transformation point of view, it's important to indicate that our transformation program is obviously based on an approach that aims to tackle the South Africa's triple challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. And we are therefore expected in terms of this to also make sure that the property sector is reflective of the demographics of South Africa. And as such, our strategy is aimed from a transformation point of view, seeks to contribute towards creating an enabling environment which will attract greater numbers of previously disadvantaged individuals into the property sector and the property profession. Specifically, still talking to the strategic objective from a transformation point of view, it's important to indicate that in terms of our transformation programs and the mandate and intent, we are obviously here to make sure that we increase the number of youth, previously disadvantaged individuals as a whole, Black women, and people with disabilities, and make sure that they are effective participants in the property practitioner sector. We're also here to we also intend on implementing the Amnesty campaign in order to make sure that those who are out of the property sector or for some reason have impediments in entering the property sector are able to enter the property sector, and we remove all barriers to entry. The third objective is to make sure that we protect, educate, and increase awareness among consumers in relation to how they conduct themselves in terms of property transactions and what protections they have in terms of the legislation. But most importantly, we are also here to make sure that we also increase consumer awareness around opportunities that exist for them in the property sector, both from an educational point of view, but also from an economic empowerment point of view. We also have an obligation from a transformation point of view to make sure that we increase internal and external transformation and make sure there's compliance with broad-based Black economic empowerment, skills development, and also make sure that we comply with the property sector charter. We also have an obligation to put in place financial mechanisms and incentives for sustainable transformation initiatives. Specifically, we have an obligation to also put in place the transformation fund. Just to speak to a few issues before I go into the programs on transformation, I think it's important to once again emphasize that the PPA has made it obligatory on the PPRA to make sure we have both internal and external mechanisms that will make sure we drive transformation, both from a Black economic empowerment point of view, but also from an employment equity point of view in terms of the Employment Equity Act. We're also here to ensure that we have we ensure economic inclusivity for previously disadvantaged individuals in the property sector. We also have an obligation to make sure that we put a transformation fund in place to make sure that not only do we just talk transformation, but there is a financial muscle to support transformation and transformation initiatives. We also have an obligation to make sure we train PDIs and make sure that we put in place training programs that will not only make sure that they grow within the sector, but they enter the sector and continue to establish themselves and grow within the sector. This will obviously ensure that there's inclusivity. We also have an obligation to establish an incubator that will help small and struggling property practitioners to get into the sector and also stay within the sector and also grow in the sector. We also have an obligation to establish the Incubator Program for principals. This is a program in terms of which Black principals who are business owners within the industry are encouraged to stay within the industry by giving them both financial and technical support for their growth and continued establishment within the industry. And a most critical purpose in terms of transformation is obviously to make sure we remove all barriers to entry for previously disadvantaged individuals within the sector. And we will obviously do that through our Amnesty Program and making sure that we remove all barriers to entry in terms of the transformation program. Now, how do we intend on obviously putting this transformation program in place? I think it's quite critical that we firstly enumerate the transformation programs. Can you go to the previous slide? We enumerate the transformation programs, then we'll go into detail in relation to which programs from a transformation point of view, what each program speaks to and how it works in terms of transformation initiatives. The first program is in relation to internship or learnership. This is a one learner, one practitioner youth. Chairperson?
The 60 minutes that was allocated for the entire department is gone. Can you summarize within 5 minutes so that?
Yes, I will, Chair.
Okay.
I'll summarize on these last two slides. Okay, the first program is the One Learner, One Property Practitioner program, which is a youth program where we bring in persons between the ages of 18 to 35 into the sector. We train them, we capacitate them, and we obviously make sure that they remain in the sector and they continue to grow in the sector. The second program is the Transformation Fund. I've already spoken to the fact that there is a specific legislative provision that speaks to the establishment of a Transformation Fund, and we have put out guidelines as the PPRA that speak to how we will be able to capacitate the Transformation Fund, but also how projects will be allocated for funding in terms of the Transformation Fund. With regard to the Amnesty Program, this is a program whereby Black PDI property practitioners who've been excluded from the sector due to the fact that there may be some financial barriers in terms of the regulatory process. These people are given an opportunity to come back into the sector, make submissions about how they can be readmitted within the sector. We then give them a Fidelity Fund certificate, we give them amnesty, we give them an opportunity to come back into the sector without having to pay any of the regulatory fees. And this is a system in terms of which we allow them into the sector for a period of 5 years, and this period is renewable annually, so they need to submit to us on an annual basis the fact that they continue to suffer financial impediment and as such will not continue to sustain themselves in the sector. Consumer awareness and campaign, we have a plan, and for the February and March APP, which the chairperson spoke about, we actually have a complete plan that speaks to how we will be going to different areas, different provinces, to make sure we increase consumer awareness, not only about the PPA, but also in relation to our transformation program. And the emphasis will obviously be on the township economy, as the chair has already indicated, but we will also be placing a lot of emphasis on rural areas because we believe that there's a lot of talent and capability in the rural areas that we we can have access to. The fifth program is the incubation for SMMEs. This one is a program in terms of which we are bringing SMMEs into the sector, and we provide them with financial support and we provide them with technical support. And the intention with the SMMEs being brought in is so that once the interns have completed their training, they can then be absorbed into the SMME, and they can then be absorbed into the SMMEs and continue to be sustained within the sector. Principalization program I've already spoken to. It's aimed at making sure we retain principals within the sector, especially Black principals. We grow them within the sector. We assist them to access markets, and we gave them financial support in the form of 500,000, which is 250,000, which is a loan, and 250,000 is a grant, so that they can continue to grow and be sustained within the sector. We also have a scorecard that we would want to put in place. The scorecard is aimed at obviously making sure that we have monitoring tools and measuring tools, so that when we are obliged in terms of the act by organs of state to give them information around the BE status or the employment equity status of property practitioners who they want to trade or who they want to do business with, we have such information available. So the scorecard will be a measuring tool that we will use in relation to making sure there's this continuous monitoring of BE and compliance by property practitioners. The last program is the educational interventions. We are a professionalized industry, so we obviously need to have educational interventions, and we obviously felt that from a transformation point of view, we need to obviously allow a wider group. We've got an internship program for young people. I'd want people over the age of 35 to be able to also come into the system. So we have a program that we put in place for them as well to be able to come in and be trained on shortened courses so that they can come into the sector and become effective participants. And that will also apply to what we call serial interns, who are people who are registered as interns for a very long period of time and are unable to obviously acquire the qualifications. I think, Chair, I'll end on that note. I think that the rest and the detail of the presentation has been circulated to the committee members, and they can obviously have recourse to that portion of the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, CEO. Honorable members, there is the presentation. I'm going to request that each member asks the maximum of 5 questions for both entities, and within 3 minutes of your time, so that we have opportunity for them to respond. If we still have time until 12:30, members will just give an opportunity again. Let me have members to engage with the presentation. 3 minutes, 5 questions per each entity, and then we'll get department to respond. If we still have much time, then we'll come back again, honorable members. Honorable Powell, start.
Chair, thanks. I think that this practice of allowing members of parliament 3 minutes to engage with 2 entities on 2 subjects is outrageous. We can't do this, Chair. I understand that the Z list...
You are eating your time,
Chairperson, don't interrupt me. I'm speaking. I understand that the Z list is Z-listed to run until 12:30. But if we are not able to effectively and robustly engage in terms of our constitutional obligations, may I ask that we then reconvene a continuation of this meeting so that we are able to fully ventilate our issues?
Honorable Powell, I given that ask questions so that we get response. Other members allow other members to do that. If there is a need to reconvene, we'll do that. But for now, ask 5 questions per entity, and then we'll come back to if we're not done.
Okay, I'm setting my stopwatch here. You can see. All right, it's going. So to the PPRA, to the chairperson, Mr. Ngobeni, welcome. We believe that you'll do good work at this entity. I understand that you've got a long road ahead of you in tackling some of the very severe challenges. I'd just like to ask you, on the 10th of December, the Minister instructed yourself to investigate a number of serious allegations that were leveled at the entity, and the Minister gave you 10 days to report back to her office. This was notwithstanding the pension fund adjudicator ruling, which made some pretty damning findings against the entity in respect of pension deductions not being actioned. And a number of these allegations concern the CEO. There was also, as you would know, a previous investigation that the ex-minister Sisulu had instructed the board to conduct, which this committee again has had no feedback on. Chairperson, will the CEO be placed on precautionary suspension pending the outcome of this investigation? If you are not able to answer that question now in terms of due process, can you please give us a timeline, perhaps a day and time that you will be able to communicate with us on what steps will be taken so that the entity can conduct this investigation in an open manner without acts of intimidation, etc. And then I've got so many questions that I'm on 1 minute, 30 seconds. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Let me just go down. I'll have to come back to my next questions. CEO, I'd just like to ask you, in terms of the PDI resolution that was presented today, it's justified by an interpretation of Section 27B of the old Act. This section no longer exists given the implementation of the Replacement Act. Why does the PPRA not rather implement Regulation 4141, which requires no application or consideration whatsoever? Or then for those suffering financial hardship, Regulation 4114 offers a simple, better solution, exempting those that are suffering financial hardship or in the interests of justice from the obligation of having to pay prescribed fees. And then CEO, again, in terms of the PPRA not currently issuing certificates between the 1st of April and the 1st of February, individuals have been told that the entity is in a transitional period, but the PPA came into effect from the 1st of February 2022, and no transitional provisions are contained in the regulations in terms of this phasing in approach that applicants kept on being told is in process. All of the provisions in the regulations are based on the expectation that the PPA will be immediately effective on its date of commencement from the 1st of February, but FFCs, etc., aren't being issued. Surely this is unlawful. Can you, as the CEO, please tell this committee why the PPRA was not actually ready to implement the Act and the regulations despite ample warning on the 1st of February? And what legislative clause, can you point us to the specific legislative clause, either in the Act or in the concomitant regulations, that allows for this phasing in approach that is being used to deny individuals FFCs? Chair, I've got a gazillion more questions. I haven't even started with the HDA, so I'll come back for round 2. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Mokhotsu.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'll forward these questions to the HDA. What are the primary reasons for the inadequate system for identifying and recording irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure, and how is the HDA addressing this ongoing challenge? What are the reasons for the anti-fraud and corruption plan and the risk implementation plan not being implemented? Kindly provide more details around the non-compliance with the recruitment and selection policy, irregular appointments, non-adherence to pay scales, unreconciled payroll against budget, as raised by the ARC. The ARC raised a number of concerns, including excessive powers of delegation bestowed on the CEO. Kindly expand on this matter. Why was the implementation support provided in Gauteng catalytic projects not reported? How is the issue of poor performing contractors being addressed? Then the next one, I'm going to direct it to the PPRA. How many of the previously disadvantaged individuals have you already enabled to participate into the real estate or the property sector? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mohotu. Honorable Butaseki.
Thank you, Chair. I think, Chair, let's start as a matter of principle about stabilization. The HGA is on a process of stabilization. And I want to thank the Minister and the Chairperson and all members who are in support of making sure that the HDA becomes the HDA for the better of the country. HDA was at some point under administration, if it's still not. And then now the Minister and his team and her team are trying their best to can bring HDA to normality. On the property practitioners, I think we should correct that. At no stage that the department came to us and said, property practitioner is facing challenges that need stabilization. So let's correct that for minute purposes. Yes, there are issues like member Emma, she's saying, there are issues that were raised in particular from the media and all that, but those have never resulted to a crisis. So there's nothing that tells us that at Property Practitioners Regulatory Authority, there is a crisis. Let's start there, so that the committee should not be assumed to have taken a stand to say there is a crisis at the Property Practitioners Authority. At HDA, as a committee, we did acknowledge, and we acknowledge the intention and the willingness of the minister to can bring that institution to normality. Now, on issues that are raised by Member Powell, I think those issues are normal, Chair, from time to time for them to be raised, and for the minister or the department to respond on them, and PPRA to respond on them. On whether that will justify suspension or not, I can't talk to that. I think the minister is the one that is going to take a view. But we should note that the DA and many other parties that are against transformation will always find fault. And Chairperson,
on a point of order, Chairperson.
The property practitioners, please take note of this.
Order.
DA has got an agenda.
On a point of order.
And that agenda is to drive against the African National Congress. And we are not going to agree to that agenda. Yes, Chairperson.
Hold on for the point of order.
Chairperson, the honourable member is casting aspersions on my political party, saying that we are anti-transformation. I'd like to please ask him to refrain from casting aspersions and state for the record that we are pro-transformation.
Honourable
I've asked that this matter be dealt with before. Honourable Seki, constant casting of aspersions is unacceptable in this committee, Chair. Can we focus on the business at hand, please?
Okay, this is what I'm saying, Chair. What the PRA is doing, Chair, they are on a drive of a transformation. And we should not fall into any trap of anyone trying to block that transformation. A property sector is a very lucrative sector for investment. And as this government, we should really propel PPRA to lead that transformation. I think that's what I'm trying to say. I want to say, Chair. And at this stage, there's no stabilization that is required on the PPRA, except the minister will report to us in the next meeting, Chair. Yes, Chair.
Your minute is gone. You'll come back if you have to. Let's allow...
Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Sehlai.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chairperson.
Proceed.
I think the committee should appreciate the road well traveled by the minister within a short space of time. It is this committee that called for a revamp of HDA. And also the EAB, given the issues that we experience that are not taking us to any service delivery, which should be the outcome of this government. I want to raise two questions and perhaps respond to some of the issues that are not assisting us in the committee. I hear in the presentation, the presenter talks about having 2 reps that are appointed from Department of Agriculture and Public Works. What does that mean? Are they now relinquish their positions and to be members in the board? Just for my education, Chair. The second issue is the issue that is raised. I like the idea of making sure that you get to the grips of the matter in terms of the organizational machinery, the change management within the organization is key. You're dealing with what we want you to do. It's going to be very key, and even the board that has established the governance structures, those committees, is going to lead the entities very well. Coming to the department, Honorable Chair and the Minister, the department should not agree that we always have problems with entities. This is an extension of your responsibilities. And therefore, make sure that your oversight is daily. I just raised daily, randomly, so that you are able to achieve the objectives of the department through the entities. I'm just raising this because this issue of HDA, which are entities having their own way of doing things, and the AB is a problem. It should not have happened. Now, the department should make sure that is on top of things. The issues raised by Powell, that consequence management, you're teaching the converted. The minister is an ANC member who understand that when wrong things have happened, somebody must account and somebody must be taken to be charged. The state capture did not come, it came because of the moral obligation of the ANC. And no other person did that. The past government has never been transparent on the atrocities that it has done to us. You can't teach this minister, you can't teach this department that there should be consequence management. Investigation, very clear, will end up to consequence management for those that have made wrong things. But again, it's important that we give order to the department. We are members of parliament, honorable as we are called. So we can't go out of these committee meetings and shout on what the department is doing, what it's doing wrong, and there are media issues from us. It's wrong. It cannot be done that way. Ours is to ensure that we deliver best, we focus on the mandate, on what the committee have sent us to do. So whoever is doing that is not honorable. It's not honorable. The last one, Chair, is the issue of the, where is this now? I like the idea that the chairperson of the board and the CEO is raising an issue of ensuring that we build relations. Remember, you're dealing with people here. People have got their own interests within the bigger mandate. And therefore, in whatever is going to happen, respect that, but you put them into order for them to make sure that they achieve the objectives of the committee. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I like the idea that you've raised that at a particular time, we will come and present to the committee when the investigations are ready. You can't present as a raw thing that is not well done and well finalized. I like that idea because we do have an interest of what have you found.
On a point of order.
Point of order, Honorable Member.
Are we all subject to the 3-minute rule? Because my time is going and time's ticking.
No, but it's got some second to finalize. Allow her to finalize. My watch says there's got some second to finalize. Honorable Sky, finalize.
For that, Chair, I was just saying to the Minister, please proceed and please come back to us when you believe that you have done your work as an ANC member who has got a responsibility, a moral obligation.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sufai.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, Chair.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands. Just from me, welcoming the presentation and welcome the two chairpersons and acknowledge the work that we have done for the short space of time. And we want to acknowledge your efforts. My question is on the department. Any reason for you to, I can see when you're presenting, you're indicating that you've advertised on City Press and Sunday Times and Government Gazette. Any reason choosing the mainstream, those two mainstream media which have been every now and then you see them are the only one that have been utilized by government? Any reason for that? Why other emerging and are not being utilized for advert? To the second question is that when the act, the Property Practitioners Regulatory Authority Act was passed, there's supposed to be a budget attached to, but listening to the presentation, seemingly there is no budget, or can we just get clarity in terms of where are we going to get money for funding this transformation? Because it's important for state to fund that process. The second issue, looking at the presentation, the smoothness of your work in Gauteng, you can see the numbers are high, and the other provinces, followed by Cape Town, of course, other provinces that are of need, the need to be empowered too, because the transformation agenda is to get everybody in the country to participate and given chance to participate in program of government. And you see other provinces, there is the graph is very bad. And what is it that you're going to do to make sure that you turn around the situation? The last thing is that I've heard that though you have not gone into the details in terms of audit findings, HDA Chair, we want to appreciate that already one of your mandate, you focus on addressing the issues that have raised by Auditor General, including you indicate that out of 28 findings, 17 you have dealt with. Just to maybe brief us in terms of consequence management. How far are you? There was an issue of temporary accommodation, which landed in SIU investigation. Are you engaging the SIU to finalize the process as soon as possible? And there was a report from the NHPRC that was commissioned by the department, which actually outlined how the compliance was ignored and how then do you handle those issues. Thank you very much. Let's get the department to respond. You have 30 minutes to respond, and so that we allow other members to come back to the issues.
Chair, I know that the minister might not be here, but in the meantime, maybe minister might join us. Was just showing my face so that to see that it's me speaking. Chair, I do want to start with the comment made by Honorable Teki and Honorable Sifwaye. I want to start by saying these two entities have come a long way over last few months. On top of the list to bring stability and improve efficiency to both entities. The department focused on putting in place boards to deal with challenges of governance and filling vacant executive positions to direct organization strategy. Chair, I do want to appreciate work done by the minister. The minister found me here in this department, and there was no stability when we started. And the turnaround strategy that the minister has made is commendable. And I do want to say, Honorable Teki, that I agree with you in terms of transformation. We've been watching this transformation not happening, and now that we are actually trying to do our best to make sure that transformation is done, you find people that do not see it, that are making a lot of noises and having red pens to always mark red instead of saying you are doing well, but here improve there and there. I thought the portfolio committee is not necessarily a platform to criticize, it's a platform to advise sometimes, because at the end of the day, we have intentions, all of us, to make sure that we improve this department. I've taken note of what you've raised, Honorable Swai, that you must always monitor the department. That's what we're trying. We're trying our best to make sure that all the time we monitor the department. And I do want to not to waste time and go straight to DDG Ngongo to answer some of the questions and also give the two chairs and also at the end the CEOs, to CEO Mamutupi, to talk on these issues. Then I will then give the DG at the end. Thank you very much. DDG Ngongo.
Thank you, DM, Honorable Chairperson. The first question that I'll respond to is from Honorable Sishwai in terms of the representatives from other departments. These representatives have been elevated or covered in the enabling legislation based on the nature of their portfolio. We will also know that in terms of the land that may be acquired for human settlements development, in line with the section 6.1 of the legislation of the HDA Act, it does refer to the land that will be acquired, which might be vested in the state or any organ of state. So this means then that the portfolio, which also involves land, which is in the hands of any national department, that national department becomes critical in the delivery of human settlements. And also legislation does enable the HDA to start having those conversations through the department in terms of that land. The representatives from other departments, and they are there to fast track our mandate to assist us with what is already on their hands, but they do not resign from their departments. They remain the officials of those respective departments, but they attend our board meetings and also offer support and bring and bring their constituencies, if I may call it that way, into the delivery of human settlements. The question, okay, the comment, this is a comment from Honorable Siswai in terms of our daily oversight in the entities. We take it positively, that comment that we need to strengthen our oversight in order to deal with any emerging problems at the entities. The question from the Honorable Chairperson in terms of the City Press and the Sunday Times, the enabling legislations require us to advertise in any national newspapers, 2 national newspapers. So the City Press and the Sunday Times, we are using it in terms of the reach that it will provide us, and also the target market that we are advertising, we are looking for. They do read the City Press and the Sunday Times. So we use them also for that reason, that we are able to get access to the target market for the boards that we are about to appoint. The second question in terms of the budget of the PPRA, let me indicate, Chairperson, that the EAAB has not been receiving the budget from the fiscus. They have been self-sufficient. But also let me indicate, refer the chapter 6 of the PPA, which is section 32, which covers the funding of the authority. And this section, we deliberately also included the funding of the authority that should be appropriated by Parliament. We included this section on the basis that the PPA now has got a huge mandate to deal with. In cases where the funding, the budget that they have, that they generate is not sufficient, this new entity must be able to be assisted by the appropriation from Parliament. So that process then will take effect. That's a reason why initially there is no budget that was apportioned or approved for the PPA from the EAAB. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Chair Ngoben, anything, and then you followed by Chair Rashidanga.
Thank you, Chairperson. And let me thank the members of the Portfolio Committee for welcoming us and engaging with our presentation. The question that I was asked to respond to directly was whether the CEO will be placed on precautionary suspension, and I'm glad that the member also allowed me some space to indicate if I cannot respond to that question here and now, and I'm afraid that is the case. I want to repeat my earlier request and ask the members of the Portfolio Committee to give us some latitude and space to do our work in a manner that is not biased, in a manner that is not prejudicial, and however, in a manner that is open and transparent. We do make that undertaking that whatever processes we are following, they will be very transparent, and you will know in due course what are the decisions that the board has taken on this specific issue and what are the reasons, because we are quite awake to the reality that we are dealing with a very sensitive issue. And in doing so, we are charged with the fiduciary responsibilities, amongst others, to be judicious in taking our decisions. So a bit of space and time will allow us to do things correctly in a manner that is accountable, in a manner that is transparent to the public. We are not responding to any excitement. As I said earlier on, we are not responsive to any impatience that is out there, but we are doing what we have to do, and we will be able to put it out there. What is it that we are doing based on the facts that are before us? I think that was the main question that we were asked, and attached to that question, I think we were asked to highlight the time frames. Indeed, the minister on the 10th of December wrote us a letter to deal with this issue and to report to her. And we reported to the minister just before we went on holiday. Our response to the minister was to give her the timelines of how we are going to attend to the issue. And the minister acknowledged and approved the undergoing in order for us to resolve the issue at hand. We are at the stage where we have already written to the CEO and accorded her, even at this very stage, a fair and a just opportunity for her to explain and respond to the allegations that are raised against her. The CEO has cooperated with us and has given us the responses. We have, as the board, assessed those responses, and we are at a stage where we have taken a particular decision, which we are still processing, and the due process that has to be followed is still being thought on. So we want to be given that opportunity for us to finalize our approach on these issues. And I want to emphasize that whatever decisions we have taken, we are taking, there is rationality to it. We should be able to appear anyway and account why we are taking such decisions. So we're just appealing for patience, and we will be able to resolve whatever issues that are there facing us at this particular point in time. Thank you very much. And I think the other questions the CEO will be able to assist me with, because they were specifically directed to the presentation that she has made. But sorry, Chair, just before I get off the podium, one more issue that I wanted to indicate is the fact that at the moment the PPRA focuses on the real estate agency as part of the property sector. However, the new legislation implores us to actually look into a wider scope, not to only focus on the estate agencies, but we want to look into conveyancers, in essence, or in summary, the people that are involved in the value chain of the sale and the buying of the properties, including developers that may be engaged in selling or letting of properties. So because of that widened scope, the numbers that you see are likely to change, albeit slightly. Our transformation intervention or agenda targets specifically the participation of women, of persons living with disabilities, of the youth. It also targets the spatial nature of our work. And as I indicated earlier on, we want to look into the new markets that are being introduced. You know that 20 years ago, you would not buy a house in Soweto in a market, but today you do get a house in Soweto in a market, and it's sold by estate agents. That means there is a new market that is emerging in the country, and that is the township economy. And we want to make sure that in this, the demographics are properly represented, the gender issues are properly attended to, the issues of the young people and their interests are attended to, of persons living with disabilities, they are being attended to. So we anticipate that the stats or the targets that you have seen that were raised by one member as a consent to say they are concentrated in Johannesburg and they are concentrated in Cape Town and concentrated in Durban. We hope that with this new market, there will be a different geographical spread in terms of statistics that we have. We mustn't forget that real estate agents, as it were, because we are currently only dealing with them, they are more demand driven. So you don't have real estate agents in areas where properties are not being sold or properties are not being bought, but you will have real estate agents in areas where there are opportunities in buying and selling of property. And Johannesburg, Cape Town, and Durban, and the fact that the other provinces are also coming to the party in terms of new development, they currently dominate the property sector insofar as buying and selling is concerned. And therefore, by implication, the real estate agents will be located and concentrated in those areas. So I think that's what accounts for the skewed numbers that you have seen in the targets and the statistics that were presented by the CEO earlier on. Thank you very much, Chair.
Chair of HDA. You're welcome to invite the CEO to assist you in responding.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I was in fact going to request that you allow me to answer a few questions, and then I will defer to our acting CEO on the other more operational questions. Honorable Mukhotu, you asked the question, what are the primary reasons for irregular and wasteful expenditure and anti-fraud corruption plans not being implemented? I think from where I sit, it is the absence of oversight. When there is a gap, there is something else that fills a gap. If there is a gap of lack of oversight, you will see non-compliance, because the reason why boards exist is so that when there are rules and regulations, policies and procedures, the boards are there to ensure that there is proper compliance with those rules. But during the spate of instability at HDA, when there were no proper governance protocols in place, during the times of interim boards, the times of administration, as well as acting executives that themselves were not sure about their own future, I think we believe that a culture of non-compliance crept in. This is what we have moved swiftly to nip in the bud, because we call on these reports in our various board committees, as well as at the main board. We call on these reports to ensure that they are within the realm of the regulation. The rules are very clear. We have PFMA that directs how things should be done. You've got treasury regulations and instruction notes that are also very clear. There's hardly anywhere where you can say that there is an ambiguity of the rules in terms of procurement and anti-fraud. So it is our responsibility to exercise that oversight role, just in the same manner as the minister exercises oversight on us as the board, and yourself as the portfolio committee, you exercise that oversight on us as an agency of the state. Because in the absence of that, we might as well become lax and not do things properly. There was also a question about non-compliance with appointments of executives. This falls within the realm of the work that we're doing in ensuring that there is implementation of corrective measures, remedial measures on audit findings. This matter was part of the audit findings. It falls under what I refer to as ongoing investigations in the organization. There were law firms that were appointed to scrutinize this matter. And as I said, we will come back to the portfolio committee with a comprehensive report on the outcomes of these investigations. But the executives that are responsible for this non-compliance are being put through the proper processes of disciplinary hearings. But we wouldn't want to prejudice the outcome of that by casting them as having been in the wrong when they are still to defend themselves before the proper channels. But I can assure committee members that these processes are underway. With regard to the sentiment around the excessive powers of the CEO, we are, as I said, in the process of reviewing the organizational structure. We are going to entertain this as this point that you have raised to check in our processes whether indeed we think that there is a over excessive powers of the CEO, as you have said. We do not want to undermine that observation, but I can assure you that the organizational structure review process is a very professional process that is being undertaken with professionals that are assisting us to ensure that it meets the kind of work that the HDA stands to undertake. Honorable Chairperson Minya, whether there are consequence management with regard to the findings, the answer is similar to what I said earlier on, that indeed there is a process at the moment where we are taking, we are undertaking investigations and following on the prescripts of the findings as to what must be done. And we can assure you that we will bring you a report in the next coming months that will demonstrate that consequence management has taken place. I will then request through you, Honorable Chairperson, that I hand over to our acting CEO to handle the other questions. Thank you.
Chairperson?
Yes, you're welcome.
No, it's Mahmoud Muthala. I thought I would be given an opportunity first to respond because the chair requested that I add.
Okay, come in, and then both of you have 6 minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I know I'll be very brief. I'll firstly start with the assertions that were made by Member Powell. Member Powell, I'd like to state that PPRA is stable. We've never been put under administration. We have an unqualified audit that augurs for the fact that we've got good governance systems in place, and this has been confirmed by the AG. Third issue, ushering in of the PPRA and the PPA. I believe that we've got all systems in place. We've got guidelines that have been put out. If you go to our website, you will see we put out guidelines for licensing, for transformation, for education and training across the business of the PPRA to show that we are ready, and we've invited industry to not only comment in writing, but we've also called them to individual meetings, and we've dealt with all the exemption applications. So I believe we are ready for the PPRA. We are implementing the PPRA. The issues you've raised about the media, I just would like to request Honorable Powell and other members on this committee to go back and read those articles carefully. Those articles relate each and every time to letters that have been sent by the minister to the chairpersons of the board. I see articles as well written that are in relation to letters that I've never seen, that have never come into my possession. So somewhere between the communication that would have been sent by the minister and the chairpersons of the board at a given time, those letters are then intercepted and end up in the media. So can it be clear that there is some issue, there's some interference in relation to those kinds of communications, and nothing points to any communication that has come from the office of the CEO or from the institution in itself? The other issue is that you raised was around transformation, and I think Member Tseki also raised this issue quite strongly. Chairperson, I really believe that Member Powell, obviously, a lot of the time, each time I'm in Parliament, raises a lot of concerns around the PPRA and what was previously the EAB, and I think it's crystal clear. The reason for this is simply because we have a very strong transformation agenda. And for the first time in the history of the institution, there is a CEO who is pushing transformation and making sure that transformation is realized. I mean, as soon as this afternoon, we are going to be undertaking racism workshop, racism hearings. And from our investigations and the research that we've done around racism within the property sector, we found that a lot of these racist practices are actually being undertaken in the Western Cape. So you can see from that kind of reporting and the fact that we're undertaking racism workshops, I would never really be a favorite person in relation to Member Powell. Member Powell, you also raised an issue around precautionary suspension. I believe that the chairperson has spoken to that, but I just want to
No. Order, CEO. Member Powell was raising the issue of the suspension raising to the chair, not to yourself.
No, I appreciate it. The only thing, can I just ask in relation, but Chair, she did raise it in the context that it would relate
on a point of order.
Honorable Powell and CEO of Memoshala, please, we don't have much time to engage in those debate. So can we give another CEO? Because now it's
okay,
2 minutes.
I finish the point, Chair? I noticed that I've spoken for 4 minutes. I'm just going to also just say
point of order.
Okay, Honorable Powell, a point of order.
Chairperson, the comments that have been made by the CEO are unacceptable when she is called to account before Parliament in terms of the Western Cape, and comments around can see why Powell would be. I'm not even going to quote verbatim because it's a waste of my time. Can the CEO please be called to order, and can she be asked to answer the questions that were put to her in terms of the specifics around the not issuing of certificates and the implementation of the PDI resolution and the PPRA? We don't have space for personal aspersions to be cast, especially by officials who are bound by higher principles than that. Thank you, Chairperson.
Let's give it to finalize Honorable Mushala, and then we give it to the CEO of HDA.
Yes, no, thank you, Chair. I was responding to the issues that Honorable Powell actually put on the table. And the issues around the Western Cape are factual. It is not a theoretic or aspersions as she's alleging. It is a factual issue. Chairperson, I just want to also indicate quite briefly that I think I have for a very long time appeared before this committee, and I've never raised one issue that I believe there is a serious conflict of interest in relation to Member Powell. Member Powell has not made it clear to this committee that she is engaged in litigation with myself because she put a tweet on her Twitter account sometime last year where she made allegations that my husband had brought a gun to the offices of the EAB, and then I asked her to retract. I asked her to retract. She refused. I then obviously took it to court because at the time my husband is not in possession of a gun, and at the time he was my estranged husband. On the issue of the fidelity fund certificate,
Honorable members, can we?
She is conflicted. She is conflicted, and that must be borne in mind.
Honorable CEO, Honorable Powell. What you are raising is very, very sensitive, and if it's not part of this meeting, I would request the CEO, if there is that issue, do it in writing to the committee, because you are shocking us now. All of us were getting surprised what you are talking about, and that's why the
point of order.
I will be writing formally, Chair, because I would have expected Member Powell, in line with the protocol.
No. Honorable CEO.
Chair recused herself. She is conflicted.
No, Honorable CEO.
I apologize.
Honorable CEO. Honorable Powell is a member of the committee And we are guided by the rules of Parliament, and she has not been found guilty of anything for now, so she will participate.
The High Court has dismissed the matter with costs.
No, that is not true. The
Your
matter is still
petition
current.
You see,
I will be writing to the
Honorable Powell and CEO. Both
okay,
of
thank you. I think that's all I wanted to say. I will communicate. Thank you, Chair.
Chairperson.
Can we then give the CEO of HDA to respond? We're eating on our time.
Chairperson, it's Honorable Powell. Yes. I have a question for you. An aspersion has been cast here that I have a conflict of interest in conducting my duty as a member of Parliament and sitting in this committee.
I've responded because you're not listening. You're not listening to me, Honourable.
Can you please just let me finish? Can you? And my argument is not with you, Chairperson, but I'd like it to be minuted and placed on record. I don't have a conflict of interest. If the Honourable, or if the CEO, Ms. Mamadupi, believes that there is a conflict of interest, perhaps she should recuse herself. But I ask that her comment that I am conflicted be withdrawn and that this matter be dealt with in writing before the Chair of Chairs, because I will not have matters that have got nothing to do with the business of Parliament being ventilated on parliamentary portfolio committee platforms. I'm happy to have an open discussion about what's really going on. But Chairperson, the CEO's comments are out of order, and I ask that as the Chairperson that we deal with this matter in writing and that it is resolved in writing before the Chair of Chairs, because I will not be told before Parliament that I have a conflict of interest in conducting my oversight duties. Thank you, Chairperson.
Honourable Powell, I've indicated that this committee is guided by the rules of Parliament, and in terms of the rules and the Constitution of the Republic, Honourable Powell has not found guilty of anything, therefore has the right to participate. I've cleared that matter. I'm not sure why do you want me to.
I would just like it to be I would just like it to be noted in writing.
I did respond to that. Can I then give
thanks, Chair. I will do so. Thank you.
Can I get HDA CEO, acting CEO to respond to already? The time is up for answering, but I'll give her 3 minutes because it was eaten by both the honourable member and the CEO of PPRA. So, acting CEO.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson, Minister, Deputy Minister, Director General, the chairpersons of the two entities, as well as my colleagues and the CEO of PPRA. Chairperson, the questions that were asked by Honourable Mokoto were responded to by the chairperson, but I just wanted to add on to that. There was one particular question that was raised about the anti-fraud and corruption plan, why it was not being implemented. The anti-fraud and corruption plan is being implemented in the HDA. And the report has been prepared. It will serve at the ordinary ARC. It was submitted to the ARC, but it has then been reserved to be heard at the ordinary ARC. And all the processes that we wanted to put in place, including the policies, the risk management policy, the fraud policy, and the plan, was approved in June of 2021. And the only thing that we are doing with that anti-fraud and corruption plan is to try and beef up the section that deals with whistleblowing. So that will be taken to the Social and Ethics Committee, which will be sitting on the 4th of April. The training and awareness on the fraud awareness that needed to be done has been done. The the anti-corruption information posters and all the awareness campaigns in the newsletter, and making sure that this information is made available to staff. That has been done. What we are still dealing with, Chairperson, which may be still outstanding, on the 28th of February, it was the closing date for us to receive the disclosures of financial interest from staff. We have received those financial disclosures from staff, but I think we still have a few that are outstanding, and the head of corporate services is following up on that. We do have disciplinary processes that we are following. We do have whistleblowing, and we do have the fraud, the forensic investigations. The two that we have is that on Talana and Duncan Village that is done by the SIU. And I know that this is also a question that was asked by Honorable Sihlwai, wanting to know about the Talana matter. The matter was heard in court on the 22nd of March, and it has been postponed to sometime in February. I think it's the 16th, and the 19th of April, sorry. And the 3 staff members that are still appearing in court will continue to appear. About 7 staff members of the HDA have also been subpoenaed to come and give evidence in that matter of Talana. So we will be able to report after the 19th as to how the case has been finalized by the SIU. On the Duncan Village, we have received a preliminary report, and the SIU has promised that they will give us a final report by the end of March. On the Mamelodi temporary residential units, we have done the investigation internally, and we have received the report which the board is dealing with. And all the other investigations of the executives, the chairperson has talked about them, the issue of adhering to pay scales, and the delegations of authority is a document that the board will be reviewing once the CEO has been appointed. And the issue of poor performance of contractors that was raised also by Honorable Mokoto is that we deal with contractors all the time, and we put them on terms if they're not performing. And we have cancelled some contracts of contractors that were not performing. Of course, they won't be happy and they will take us to court, and we are dealing with those matters. And then the last portion that I want to talk about is that of consequence management, especially in as far as the audit outcomes and the irregular expenditure is concerned. We do have a committee that is dealing with that, and the matter is in hand. Chairperson, I hope I have covered all the questions, but if I haven't, members will be able to let me know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I then get members to engage just 10 to 12, the same rule, the same minutes, so that we still have an opportunity for members to answer the questions.
Okay, can I start, Chair? Can I start, Chairperson? Chairperson?
Hello, Chairperson.
I'm saying the gadget show me who has raised the hands first. It's Honorable Mohutu, followed by Honorable Powell, and then you are the third one, Honorable Zeki. Let's give it Honorable Mohutu 3 minutes, and then Honorable Powell 3, and then you come back 3, and then we then get the department to respond.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable Mohutu.
Thank you, Chairperson. The HDA did not respond to one of the questions that I asked. I'll be very happy if they can respond to. Let me remind them of the question. Why was the implementation support provided in Gauteng catalytic projects not reported? And then I am going to ask again the following questions. How is the instruction from National Treasury to return 195.8 million for non-compliance with DORA likely to impact on the operations of the entity? What was the essence of the non-compliance as raised by the National Treasury? Another question, why did accruals increase so dramatically from 90,000 to 90,000 million to 78.8 million? And then another question is, why was no appropriate action taken by the board against employees implicated in the allegations of corruption in the awarding of a tender for TRUs in Limpopo? And how many employees and at which level were they implicated? When did this alleged corruption take place? How far are the court processes with respect to the issue? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Mohutu. Honorable Powell.
Thanks, Chair. I'm starting my timer. More questions for the CEO of the PPRA. Rebosa have brought an application which was granted with punitive costs last year, and they've launched a second application in respect of contempt of court. Rebosa have stated that this is still progressing, as the PPRA have not filed the required court papers nor responded to settlement talks. Can the CEO please advise what outcome is being pursued? And then I understand that there are a number of contracts that have been awarded for the value of under 500,000 Rand, and that some of these have actually been flagged by the banks. Are transactions below 500,000 Rand procured with or without obtaining other price quotations as required by Treasury regulations? Also noting that we will be piring all of these contracts. Then moving on to the HDA, I think a lot of the questions have been asked. I've got a lot of commentary, especially around the HDA today in March of 2022, admitting that all of the irregularity is as a result of a culture of non-compliance and a leadership lacuna created by the ex-minister and the ex-board, as well as a lack of executive oversight. We have been warning about this for 3 years now. I do welcome the new board chairperson and new board, and welcome the decisive action that Minister Kubayi has taken in regards to finally taking action in respect to this entity. Our calls as the DA and this committee have certainly fallen on deaf ears. I wrote to Neville Cheney, and I don't know if it should be the acting CEO or the board, but essentially I wrote to Neville, who was acting as the administrator in March last year, in regards to section 65.1 of the Public Finance Management Act, which states that the executive authority responsible for any department or entity must table in the National Assembly the findings of any disciplinary board and any sanctions imposed by a board which heard such a case, meaning that the minister is required by law to inform Parliament of the findings of any disciplinary board of any entity which heard a case in relation to financial misconduct against any accounting authority in terms of section 81 or 83 of the PFMA. When I wrote to Neville, he wrote back to say, we don't have anything for you. No action's been taken. This was in March last year. Deputy Minister or chairperson of the HDA board, can you please indicate when Parliament will receive such a report in terms of section 65.1 of the PFMA? I've still got 20 or so seconds left, but I just want to say that the irregular expenditure within this entity is now in excess of 147 million rand. Again, a qualified audit. And despite the recommendations of this committee, it seems that until Minister Kubayi replaced Minister Sisulu, absolutely no action was taken. And I think that this must serve as a warning to our committee that when recommendations are made, even by opposition members such as myself, to make binding recommendations before Parliament that call for ministerial action or for decisive action or action taken in terms of the new Audit Act, that we work in a collaborative manner as opposed to shielding and protecting these entities and these officials as we've done with the HDA until the point that Minister Kubayi came in and right-sized the board. So I've got a lot more questions, but I'll put them in writing to you, Chairperson, and if we can please get written responses from the officials, given that there is probably not going to be time for a third round today. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Powell. Honorable Tseki.
Chair, can I ask one thing? Member Powell seems to be having an internal information of the department. I would request, Chair, that since these letters seems to be public, for public consumptions, please get these letters of the 10th and then the responder of the CEO. All these documents must be sent officially to the Chair, and the Chair decides on how to distribute them to the committee, because it's like we are talking to from the blind spot while Member Powell is talking from the hot spot. So that will be my first request. And the second one is this one, Chair, where it is said.
Can we get people to mute? Who's this one?
Yeah, it's on my side, Chair. It's on my side, I know.
Okay.
Can we also, Chair, I hear what the chairperson of the process in terms of what they are doing. I think I would request the committee to be briefed exactly what is this that is being investigated in PRA, so that we are able to move forward, Chair. That will be my humble. I don't want to get into what Member Powell have raised in context because I may be out of order, but I would want to get information so that when I respond with an informed engagement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Tseki. Just to the chair of PRA has indicated that they are they're expanding on the act. It's given the mandate to expand on the value chain. One of the problems that has been in the property sector has been the evaluation processes. So I would request the chair to and the entity to look at that, and at some point we come and engage in terms of this transformation around evaluation of properties, because our people, they are losing lot of money because of this value add, and then maybe if we can then be even educated how do they evaluate properties, because it seemingly there is even challenges with regard to that. The second one is on the HDA, to say that the chair talks about we noted before that this entity is not being funded, and this affected the audit outcome, for particularly on contract management, where the provinces will wait for the when they are at the red situation, then they will then end up taking those projects, which compromises the audit outcome in terms of project management. And we welcome that this recapitalization that you are going to focus on. Maybe just to brief us what would entail that, so that we know that as we are going to engage in the coming, as we are going to deal with strategic plan, we'll then know what is it that you are doing. The last thing is the issue of transformation of spatial planning. Provinces, they continue to build RDP houses in the outskirts of the areas, and we welcome the collaboration that you are undertaking. And we want to know whether you engaging provinces at some point. You would come back to give us the what is it that the HDA is doing to make sure that indeed there is the transformation of spatial planning in the provinces. You don't perpetuate this apartheid spatial planning that we found in the system. Can we get the team to respond? DM, we're in your hands, and DG.
Just to save time, Chair, let me come at the end, because these questions are directed to them. And then I counted the DG to also come in, and maybe we made a mistake of not calling the DG. But I will start with DG.
You didn't have the time. Now we're giving you 25 minutes so that you can share the 25 minutes all the time. If you are at the end, the 25 minutes, we reach that point, you are not going to speak to. So today I'm very strict on my time. Okay. Whoever must start.
DG Ngongo, will you start?
Thank you, DM and Chairperson. I don't have any comment for now. Maybe we can give the DG to proceed. Thank you.
Chair, there was no specific question that was directed to the department, but perhaps maybe one can use this opportunity to echo the point that was made by the chair of HDA about the financing model. Chairperson, the HDA has been very much involved in the implementation of its second mandate, where they're acting as an implementing agent for provinces, in some cases for municipalities. Where we would want the entity to focus on in the long run is on its primary mandate, which is land assemble for human settlements development. We know that part of the problem is the fact that the entity was never capitalized, but there were always two ways of capitalizing the entity. We knew that they will either be capitalized through the fiscus, or we use some of the assets that we own as a state to capitalize the entity. In other words, if there is property that is in the hands of HDA, that property can be used to beef up HDA's balance sheet. Because in the long run, our intention is to make sure that HDA does not rely on the fiscus to run its operations. And that's the part that the chair of the entity is focusing on. And perhaps at some point, we may have to spend a little bit of time discussing that part. Because I think there are in a way, some, if you like, moral hazards in the execution of that secondary mandate, because we transfer the money to provinces, then in turn provinces transfer the money to HDA for HDA to act as an implementing agent. HDA doesn't have full control of that budget because it's not their budget. And where we would want this entity to be in the long run is in the management of its own budget. They can get into partnerships with various property developers. There are a lot of them in this country. They can get into partnership with a number of property funders. We have a lot of them in this country, and that's exactly where we wanted this entity to be in the long run. So that the secondary mandate remains a secondary mandate. But currently, the primary mandate is in the back seat, and the secondary mandate is being operationalized as if it's a primary mandate. And that's the part that we would want to, to pay attention to. I guess that there's, if you can see, there's clarity of purpose in terms of where the organization is going. You've listened to the chair of the entities, and I think they're very clear about what they want to do, both PPRE and HDA. Insofar as PPRE is concerned, we've met with the technical team and we've asked them to operationalize the cost of implementing the act. As I'm sure you heard the chair earlier talking about the expanded mandate. The implementation of that expanded mandate is going to require funding because it's not something that they've budgeted for at this stage. And some of the clauses in the act have to be phased because they would require financing. And we've asked them to move with speed and prepare a submission to us so that we can arrange a meeting with our colleagues at Treasury to assist us to finance some of those unfunded aspects of the mandate of the PPRE. Chairperson, the specifics about some of the questions that were raised by honorable members, I will leave them to the CEOs of the entities to deal with the specifics. But I just wanted to touch on the two parts. One, the financing of the primary mandate of HDA. Two, the financing of the expanded mandate of PPRE. And that's something that we've discussed in the CEOs forum as well. And that's something that we would want to prioritize with the National Treasury. And the MTech process starts in June. So if we're targeting to get budgeting for the next financial year, not the one that is starting in April, because the one that is starting in April has been concluded already. But if we're targeting to get funding either during the budget adjustment in October or in the next financial year, we will have to start the process, one, of submitting to National Treasury what we want HDA to be, on how we want HDA to be capitalized. But I also think that there's some creativity, that is required on our side, because some of the land parcels that we're going to be receiving from Public Works, those land parcels can be used to strengthen the balance sheet of HDA, depending on how we package our development concepts or our development proposal. So we don't have to wait for the fiscus to beef up the HDA balance sheet. But for PPRE, I would urge the chair and the CEO of the entity to start costing the implementation of the new expanded mandate. How much is going to cost them to implement this expanded mandate, so that we can apply our mind before we go to a meeting with National Treasury. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Those are the only two comments that I wanted to make.
Can we then allow the chair and the CEO of HDA to respond to some of the questions?
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister Metswete. I will start and then I will ask the acting CEO to deal with all the questions that were raised by Honorable Mukhotu that are quite operational in character. I want to expand comments by the DG Changana to say, indeed, one of the things that affects how we will succeed with transitioning towards the primary mandate as the HDA to ensure that we are financially self-sustainable into the long run is to create the necessary capacity within the organization that will implement this developer mandate. This has implication for what we've been reporting as the process of the review of the organizational structure, because one of the observations that we made is as desirable as we are to transition into this mandate, do we have the right skills in place? We need the professionals that will be able to engage with the private sector, that will be able to engage with the financial institutions and put together packages that can allow for these kinds of partnerships. And so part of the review of the structure is to ensure that we bring in the right capacity needed to catapult us to this primary mandate. Some of the institutions we have flagged that we believe we have a common interest that can allow for partnerships are the development finance institutions such as DBSA, PIC, our very own National Housing Finance Corporation. And in the private sector, you have a lot of pension funds that have the appetite to invest in human settlement projects. And I think this is the capacity that is required in the organization to engage, because this has to be done on a day-to-day basis. As the board, we can give direction, but we need the institution to have the wherewithal to engage with the private sector. All of this are what is regarded as strategic transactions that are governed by a concurrence with our executive authority. So we are currently in a place of packaging the business plan for the developer mandate, and we'll soon be engaging with the minister so that she can give support to such a proposal, because we are required by law to seek concurrence when we undertake such actions that have materiality implications. So I just thought that I should add to that. We do agree with you, Honorable Chairperson Semenya, that ourselves as the new board, we have experienced this rush of bringing projects to the HDA towards the end of the financial year in the fourth quarter. What Treasury has sometimes alluded to as fiscal dumping by departments or by provinces. And we realize that it is really a lack of proper planning, and because a number of the projects that are rushed at the last quarter of the financial year would have been in discussions between the HDA and the provinces, but not being finalized in terms of the implementation protocols, the funding agreements that have to be in place for the HDA to assist provinces. So we realize that we have to be strict with ensuring that the planning is spread out across the financial year and would not have the likelihood of fiscal dumping, which anyway, as you have said, Honorable Chairperson, will be regarded as an audit finding on our part. And so we have come across that experience because we came in at the last quarter of the financial year as this new board. It's something that we are observing with keen interest, and we would like our management to do better with the provinces. We know that we have the support of the minister in this during the MINMAX. It is a matter that is brought up for provinces to really allocate the work to the HDA in time for its implementation, and not only wait until the fourth quarter or the last quarter of the financial year. So it is something that's really on our radar. Indeed, engagement with the provinces is crucial for the transformation of spatial settlements in our country. A lot of the projects that we are undertaking on our own into the developer mandates on the basis of strategic land parcels and properties that we acquire is guided by having to ensure that they locate within the priority human settlement development areas, which would have, according to the spatial development frameworks of the various districts in the provinces, would have been earmarked as the correct places for spatial transformation. So we have to work with the provinces and the municipalities, even if we are undertaking our own projects, because our projects have to fall in line the spatial frameworks, so that the bulk infrastructure that is required can then be supported on the basis that it is already incorporated in the planning in the provinces. So we are mindful of that, Honorable Semenya. We have to imagine these new inclusive living spaces together with the provinces and the municipalities. Thank you very much. I'll hand over to the acting CEO to deal with those other questions.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, the question that was asked by Honorable Powell about Section 65 of the PFMA. I think the letter was written to Mr. Neville Cheney when he was the administrator in the HDA. I think Honorable Powell could then write a similar kind of letter to the current board, and it will be responded to. The issue of the irregular expenditure also raised by Honorable Powell for 2020-21, wanting to know when that has there been action that has been taken. Yes, it is an ongoing matter. We have a team of executives that are dealing with the issue of the irregular expenditure, especially the issue of consequence management. We have established the committee that is expected to be established, which is the condonation committee. And in areas where we need to condone or where we need to submit cases to National Treasury, especially those of financial misconduct, then that committee will assist the entity in doing that. And where staff members have to be held responsible for the irregular expenditure that they have caused, that committee is assisting us as well. And with the issue of putting internal controls and prevention measures in place, it is an ongoing thing that we do in the organization. We have on-the-job training for all of our SCM staff, and we review all of our tender files. We have a probity team that ensures that there is compliance, and we comply with all the prescripts before matters proceed to bid evaluation committees and to the bid adjudication committees. And the SCM policy was recently revised, and it is aligned with all the National Treasury regulations. And the issue of compliance is taken seriously. We even have compliance officers assisting us to ensure that all of our projects are compliant with all the applicable legislation. And lastly, the issue of ensuring that we prevent recurrence of these audit findings is something that we are watching very closely as well, as the accounting officer and as the executives in the entity. The other question that was asked by Honorable Machweni on the issue of spatial planning and spatial transformation, we we do have a unit, it's called SEA, which assists us in making sure that all of our projects are mapped, and they, if they fall within the PHDAs, it is noted. If they fall within the PHDAs, it is also noted which PHDAs it falls within, and we encourage all the provinces and municipalities to ensure that at least the projects that they initiate fall within the PHDAs. Even when they are looking for land, we always check against the special plans of the various provinces and municipalities. And we are also looking into the issue of contracts management. I think member Chweni wanted to know how our funding model also has an impact on how we manage our contracts within the agency and how we deal with our contractors. I think there are instances where we are required to first create value before we can receive the funding. And there are instances where the provinces and municipalities pay us the funds in advance, and we then report on the work that we have done. So in instances where we are required to create value first, I think the issue of recapitalization will come in handy, because then we will have our own funds that we can use, which we can then claim after we have implemented projects that we are intending to partner with the private sector or with our public sector partners. And I think, Chairperson, the last question that I did not get clear from a member Mokoto is that catalytic projects in Gauteng. I did not understand the question, and as a result, I'm not in a position to provide a response. If maybe the question could be made clearer, I will attempt to answer the question. And I think on the issue of the TR using Limpopo also, the question was repeated by honorable member Mokoto, and I think I had outlined how the court was held on the 22nd of March, and it has been remanded to the 19th of April. And 3 of our staff members who were serving in the bid evaluation committee are the ones that are subjected to that court hearing. And I also indicated that some of the staff members within the HDA have been subpoenaed to come and become witnesses and give evidence in that matter. And we will be able to come back after the 19th and update the committee on the issue of Dalana. There were specific questions that were asked about accruals. I also did not get the question properly, but I think the member was saying, why has the accruals increased from 78 million to 90 million? I wasn't sure about the question there. Thanks, Chairperson.
Chairperson.
Thank you very much.
Can we then go to Chairperson Ngubane and the CEO to respond to?
Can I please ask you?
Can we allow the Chairperson Ngubane to respond, and then you'll come back, honorable member? Chairperson
wanted
Ngubane and
to clarify this last question, which the acting CEO
no, you are
did
going
not
to
understand.
you are going to be allowed to do that. Let's give because we don't have much time. Let's allow the chairperson of Ngubane to if he wants to start responding on what Honorable Powell has raised, and if or whether the CEO should take all those questions.
Thank you, Chair. The Honorable Member Powell raised an issue about procurement contracts which are under 500,000 that have been flagged by the banks. We don't have information around this, either arising out of our Auditor General's findings or any reports, even from the whistleblowers. So if the member at this end would invite her to bring it to our attention, we are not aware of any contracts being flagged by the banks or any issues raised. Insofar as we are concerned, relying on the audit outcomes last year, the procurement processes were being followed. But if there is further information that the member has, we will be more than happy to look into it. And the CEO is also here. If she has any knowledge of this, she can speak to it. But on behalf of the board, this has not been brought to our attention. And at least at the level of governance work that we are doing, we would rather say we have not come across such information. There is also another point that was raised by the chairperson of the session on the expanded mandate of the PPRA. I just want to indicate that the property valuers, by the way, I'm also one. I am a professional valuer. They are regulated in terms of the Professional Valuers Act, and that regulation is looked after by the Council for the Professional Valuers, and it's situated in the Public Works Department. The evaluations that they do usually, insofar as it affects the state, it relates to the issues of expropriation, the issues of the buying and selling of property by the state. It also relates to the rating of properties by the municipality. The council regulates the code of conduct amongst the valuers. However, when a private individual employs the services of a valuer to give an estimate on the property, it's really a choice that they would have made. In the value chain that I spoke about of buying and selling of property, it's not really compulsory. It's not a statutory requirement that a valuer has got to be involved in any way. Hence, we draw the distinction between the property value, the estimate thereof, and the asking price. So the property could be valued at 3 million, but if I'm asking for it 4 million, that's it. That's my asking price, and it will sell for that if there is a willing buyer that is going to accept my offer. So in the value chain that we are dealing with as the PPRA, in the context of the expanded mandate, the property valuers per se are not covered as part of the scope, but there is an agency that is looking at or after the regulation of the professional valuers, and that is the Council for the Property Valuers. We have intentions to interact with them so that we can see how we can achieve synergies insofar as doing our work is concerned. But I just wanted to highlight to the chair that it's not really squarely within our mandate to look after the property valuers and the work that they do. Thank you. I will allow the CEO, through your permission, Chair, to then respond to other questions that were asked.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairperson. I will respond to the questions that the Chair has not dealt with, the Chairperson of the PPRA Board. With regard to the issue of the litigation with Rebosa, I think we've already reported to the Board that that litigation with Rebosa, we reached a point whereby we gave them all the information and the issue of urgency. They could not stand on the issue of urgency, and they withdrew the matter in relation to the urgent application, because we did prove to Rebosa and presented information to the Board at the time that the Fidelity Fund certificates that we are alleged to not have processed and and issued, we had actually issued those Fidelity Fund certificates. I think there were 7 applicants, and of those 7 applicants, 6 had been issued. I think there was only 1 that was outstanding, but it was then issued prior to the date of the hearing, and then the matter on the issue of agency was then removed. We then, the allegation that's made by Member Powell was also raised, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, in relation to the new board, where they were indicating that Rebosa will be taking us to court, and in fact, they presented a communication to the board, which was an internal communication between Rebosa's CEO and Rebosa's board. And it was noted that it was quite irregular that we would be, that kind of communication would be presented to it. Since then, we have not received any communication or any court process where Rebosa is indicating that they are proceeding with the matter, or that the matter has been set down for a date of hearing. And even our attorneys of record have indicated that they have not heard anything further, other than the fact that there's been an exchange of pleadings, but there is no specific date. On the issue around the contracts that are under the value of 500,000, as far as I understand, those the regulation has been amended by National Treasury. It is now for a request for quotes. It's all matters that are all procurements that are under $1 million. But even previously, when we're dealing with procurements under the amount of 500,000, the process is undertaken by SCM. They get 3 quotes. An assessment is made of those as to which entity meets the highest points in relation to price and to BEE. But obviously, with the new, recent Constitutional Court judgment, we're all now obviously assessing according to price. So I think that is the process that we followed. With regard to the assertion that there are certain transactions that were flagged by the banks, as far as we know, there was one matter where the banks actually, I think in December last year, sent a query to us to confirm that a certain individual was a service provider of the EAB or PPRA. Currently, and we obviously made that information available as to whether that person is a service provider or not. And I believe our finance department was taking care of that matter. I can follow up to find out exactly what was the final outcome in relation to the matter. But it was about checking whether or not that particular individual is a service provider, so that when payment is made or payment is released, they get confirmation that that person is a service provider. I think on other issues, those were questions that were directed at the HDA. I don't know, Chair, if you would want me to speak to the questions that I didn't respond to in the previous round, or do I leave them? I'll be guided by yourself, Chairperson. Thank you.
Proceed, CEO.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I think a member Mukhoto asked about how many PDIs had been brought into the real estate sector. I do believe in terms of our annual report, we did indicate that the total number of estate agents with regards to the PDI estate agents, there were just over 3,200, which is include your full status agents and your interns. So that's what we're sitting on in terms of that. And then in relation to the other programs that we have, I had made it part of my presentation, but unfortunately because of time, I didn't manage to get into those particular slides. But if you look at the slides that were presented earlier, you will see that in terms of one learner, one property practitioner, we have been able, in the past financial year, we've been able to bring in a reasonable number of young people into the sector. We did bring in a total of, if you can just give me 1 second, I'm on the slide. We did bring in a total of 600, sorry, my apologies. We did bring in a total of 240 learners. And the reason we brought in a smaller number was because of the fact that we were obviously subject to and there were also problems with regard to services CETA. But in this financial year, we're obviously looking at bringing in between 600 and 2,000 learners. And we have obviously got a table that speaks to the different provinces and what numbers we intend on bringing in terms of that. There was also a question around by Member Tseki. I think, Honorable Member Tseki, I concur with the issues you've raised. And I do believe the issue of transformation still remains a very thorny issue. And I do believe that it will continue to be a thorny issue until there's obviously a decisive, there's a firm decision that is made that transformation will have to happen, and it will have to happen at all costs, and all obstacles or persons who would want to deter or defer transformation must obviously be dealt with quite directly and made sure that we make sure that those kinds of people or that people not have age that will prevail, but rather have that be being ignored and set aside in the name of making sure that transformation prevails.
Thank you.
Asked us a question about
Thank you. Can submit those ones in writing that you have, so that we give the DM chance to respond. I've seen the minister has come. The minister has come back.
Chairperson.
So you'll share. Honorable Mokhoto.
Yes, I said I wanted to clarify that question, which was not understood by HDA, so that they can be able to capture it correctly. My question is, or was, why did accruals increase so dramatically from 90,000 to 78.8 million? And another question which was not responded to is, how is the instruction from National Treasury to return 195.8 million for non-compliance with DORA likely to impact on the operations of the entity? What was the essence of the non-compliance as raised by the National Treasury? Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay, let's allow the CEO to respond before the DM.
Thank you very much.
Of HDA.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The question from Member Mokhoto is very specific. I'll have to go into the whole list of accruals to check why they increased from 90,000 to 78.8 million. It is not, I will not be able to provide those details right now. And then on the issue of non-compliance with DORA, there's a number of compliance issues with DORA as well there. For the specific amount that Member Mokhoto is raising, I will have to check what exactly in the DORA framework did we not comply with, because we receive a number of funds from the various provinces and municipalities that we work with, and we have to make sure that those funds are accounted for properly. So I'm not sure why would Treasury say we were not in compliance with DORA, we will have they become very specific when they do tell you the specific sections of DORA that you did not comply with, and I will only be able to provide those answers when I'm sitting in front of our financials and outline exactly which portions of DORA we did not comply with.
Can we then request CEO to provide those answers in writing through the secretary of the committee within 7 days?
Yes, we will do that. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you. DM?
Chair, I'll be very fast. I see that the minister is also here so that I could give her minutes to summarize. Let me start by apologizing to you, Chair, and the Portfolio Committee for the conduct displayed by the CEO of the PPRA in this meeting, and state that it is by no means a reflection of the entity and the Department of Human Settlements. We must respect protocol. Hold this committee at a high esteem and appreciate its role of oversight. And I do want to raise two issues. Honorable Powell, the minister in her opening remarks touched on the issue of SIU. And she said, once the report is ready, it will be brought in front of the committee. I've never heard in my life hearing that this matter is under investigations and we pursue that, we discuss those matters. There's a word, even if I'm not a lawyer, I know that once it says it's sub judice, it's something that you cannot discuss in the meeting until it's finalized. But the other thing that I would like to raise, which is the last issue, is that maybe the CEO has her own frustrations, but she must write a letter, a formal letter to the committee of the chair so that her matter is attended to by the committee, because the matter that you were raised was not part of this meeting. So I advise you to write a formal letter to the chair. I would like to thank all members that commended the work of the minister and her team. All the members of the committee can rest assured that all the concerns and comments that you've made will make a follow-up again of the letter, Honorable Powell, that said you wrote to DDG Cheney. We'll make a follow-up and you'll find the response as quick as possible. And for those few words, let me allow the minister to do the summary. Thank you very much.
Minister Kubach.
I thought I saw the name of the minister in the list of people that are here, but unfortunately, the minister maybe she's not here
too,
right now.
I saw the probably has not logged out when he left that meeting.
But let me round up, Chair, by thanking all people that responded to questions, especially the chairs of the boards and also the CEOs and the DDGs, the DG of the department. Thank you very much. And thank the Portfolio Committee for advising us and also tolerate us in all. We have our own mistakes. We'll correct them on the way. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, DM. There is a question from Mr. Hlwai from PPRA, which has not responded. CEO, can you send those in writing? Honorable Powell was going to send other questions through Koliswa, which will then be directed to the department for the department to respond as a follow-up questions. But again, to indicate that we will still have the engagement with the department as we continue playing oversight on the department. I'm now going to release the department and ask Kwaliswa to table the minutes.
Chair, it's Honorable Powell.
On what, Honorable Powell?
An internal committee request to you.
Can we allow the department to leave and then we finalize the agenda, we look at the minutes?
Yes, that's fine. I'll pose my question later.
Okay. Kwaliswa?
Hello, Chairperson.
The minutes that we have not dealt with in the last meeting.
The minutes of the 12th of November 2021, Chairperson.
Let me commit the DM and your team, you are released. Thank you very much. Members, can we look at the minutes of the 12th, which was returned back? Kwaliswa, can you scroll it? I hope you have distributed to members in the last meeting.
Yes, Chairperson, 3 sets of minutes were distributed last week, which is the 12th, the 23, and the 2nd of 23 February and the 2nd of March.
Okay. Can I get members to interact with the minutes of the 12th? Any correction or amendment of the minutes, and then and invite members to move for the adoption of the minutes.
Chairperson, my apology.
Yes, Honorable.
I think I'm not sure whether you can guide us. On these minutes of the 12th, there were only 2 areas that we differed with Member Powell. I'm not sure whether Kwaliswa have crafted them so that we can focus on them and pass, Chair.
Chairperson.
Sorry if...
Yes, Honorable Powell.
Can I just, a question of clarity, the minutes that are being presented now, I presume that these are the minutes that had to do with the EAAB that we had the dispute about in committee, and Kwaliswa then she had informed the committee that the minutes were drafted on the basis of her having listened to the recording. She then circulated the recording to us. I went through the recording and verified what was in the minutes. That was the purpose of referring the minutes back, was so that we could all listen to the recording to corroborate that Kwaliswa had used the recording. Is this that set of minutes? Because if so, I think we need to go through. It is. Can we then go through, can Kwaliswa take us through what she has edited since the minutes were referred back, and on what basis in terms of the recording?
So you want it to be said by you. You don't want to be said by me, Member Powell. That's the order. You are out of order, Member Powell.
Honorable members, allow me to chair the meeting. Honorable Malachi, point of order.
Thanks, Chairperson. Thanks. There were not many issues even on the last meetings that we disputed. I think what we can easily do, unlike going word by word, Kwaliswa can just highlight the points that were raised, which were corrected, then we move on. Because the issues were not too many. Now, we don't have to go through the whole minutes to verify that, because there were consensus on, I can say 99% of the minutes. It was just there and there that they had to be corrected, and that's why the video was requested. Thanks.
Okay.
I second that suggestion, Chair.
Okay, Kwaliswa.
Hello, Chairperson. The issue that was needed to be clarified was the issue of the where I was requested to state that it was alleged the figures that were mentioned were alleged, not the figures that were part of the presentation as per the questions that were raised. So the member alleged that the Auditor General found out amount disclosed of 143 million was alleged. So that was the name alleged that was missing, that I was requested to add on paragraph where it said 147 million and also where it said 195.8 million, Chairperson.
Chair, it's Honourable Powell. Can I share my screen, because that wasn't alleged by any member. That is directly taken from the parliamentary research report that was circulated to us, as well as the actual audit report. It's not alleged, it's a fact. It's an audit finding. I can share my screen and show you where it says that in the report that was circulated to us as members from Parliament. It's not an allegation, it's a finding. It's a finding of the auditor. And I'm happy to share my screen so that you can actually see the parliamentary report that contains that exact sentence.
Okay.
Want me to do that quickly? Chairperson, do you want me to quickly share that report on my screen? If I can see I've got screen sharing rights here. I can just pull that report up quickly. It's actually right in front of me here. Again, it was shared with us on the 9th of March. It's a report from Parliament, and you will find that figure on, sorry, I'm just looking for the page number. Here we go. It's on page 5. Let me quickly share my screen and I'll show you.
Honourable Powell, you are referring to the report of the researcher.
Yes, but it's also in the actual audit.
Yeah, let's call.
Let's
agree, Chair. Let's call order.
Let me clarify it, Honourable Powell. If it's a researcher, it's still alleged. But if it's Auditor General, listen, Honourable Powell, if it's the report of Auditor General set by Auditor General,
external audit.
When yes, listen, Honourable Powell. If it's the audit report produced by auditors, then we'll say the auditors indicated that.
And they did. So it's not the
No, I'm saying you, when it says by you, it cannot be. It's not the auditors. It's the second information from somebody else. It's not that when it's alleged,
the audit report. Because you can't say that the member is alleging 100.
Order, Member Powell, listen. We're out of order, Member Powell. You're out of order.
Powell, listen. Honourable Powell, the report of Auditor General or auditors we have, all of us, this is what you said. And it cannot be, you cannot assume you are the auditor yourself.
But Chairperson, minutes are reflecting a statement that says that the member alleges that 147 million rand was incurred. It's not an allegation. It is contained in the report of the external audit.
That's what must be changed. The sentence should be changed to say the auditor's report said 1, 2, 3, 4. Not because if it's said by you, it would be allegation. It's not you are not. Yes.
Yes. Well, that's my point. Yes. Thanks, Chair.
Yes. If it's the auditor's report, then the sentence should reflect the auditor's report indicated that. You understand what I'm saying?
$1 million. Yes. Agreed.
Yes. Yeah. So
agreed,
can we
Chair.
then? Yes. Can we then
move for that part?
Can we have it back on the screen, colleague?
So we're agreeing that it will reflect that the auditors in their finding, this is what they've said. That sentence should be changed to say the member the members indicated that the auditors has found that why wanna call this one?
Yes, I understand, Chairperson, but it was not part of the presentation, but part of the questions. So must I still say the Auditor General?
The auditor. No, I'm saying
it's an external auditor, not the Auditor General.
The external auditor found, the member alleged that the auditor found this 1, 2, 3, 4, or you can say as found by the auditor, the member raised the following issues. Because I think that's the language that we should use. Can we then go to another one?
Chair, was this the only sentence in those minutes that was changed?
Let's go down. I don't know which one, Koliso. There were repetitions of issues, and Koliso, you can explain what you have done.
Hello, Chairperson. The other one was on the let me try and go down. It was also on this part of the EAAB, Chairperson.
Yes.
Members noted that the EAAB. So I also added the alleged amount there of 750,000.
Okay.
Yes, Chairperson.
What did you change here, Kali? Because this, if you can go up from the part about Bruce Gordon all the way down to the 730,000 Rand in costs that was owed to Rebosa, that was what we disputed. You had listened to the recording and there was a dispute over the wording. What exactly have you changed in terms of these minutes?
The alleged amount, that 750,000
you
has
just
been
added
paid.
the word alleged.
Hmm.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Chairperson, I have offered to provide the costs order from the High Court. Again, I'm not going to dispute this here. It's a waste of everyone's time. It's an order of court. It's not an allegation. But if you want to say that it's an allegation,
it's an allegation because I as the chairperson, I've not received that, honorable.
You want me to
or members at the time you raised, Honorable Powell. At the time you raised in the meeting, we didn't have that information. It will remain an allegation until we have a proof that this is what happened. And,
you want me to bring these
but it cannot change the minutes because at the time you have raised,
a court order.
It remain alleged.
Okay, this is how state capture happened, Chairperson, but it's fine. Please note the DA's objection to the approval of these minutes.
Okay, let's deal with this issue of the state capture. The state capture, this sector is never involved. They've never appeared on state capture, and every now and then, given the example of state capture when people are raising issues of procedure, unfortunately, it's something else, Honorable Powell.
Yeah, I agree.
We are not
for another day, Chairperson, but essentially the lackluster approach.
No, I'm responding. I'm responding to issue that
state capture happened, and that is
Can we stop exchanging, Honorable Member? We're looking at the minutes. Where does the state?
Let's have a robust.
Can I get the move out there for the adoption of the minutes?
Facts.
Can we get the mover for the adoption of the minutes? Members, can we get the mover for the adoption of the minutes?
I move for the adoption of the minutes, Chairperson.
Honorable
Seconded, Chair.
Honorable Tseki, second. Thank you very much. Can you put another minute? Honorable Setlhoi, can you mute? Honorable Setlhoi. Start from the beginning, the minutes of the
23 February.
23 February, go up, Honorable, sorry, Koliso. Any addition, any correction of the minutes? I don't see any hands. Can I then get the mover for the adoption of the minutes?
Agreed, Chairperson.
Honorable Tseki moved for the adoption. Can I again get the seconder?
Chair, please note the objection of the DA.
The DA, we noted the objection of the DA. Can we then get the, we have not get the second, Honorable Powell. Can you wait? Honorable members, can we get Malachi second, the minutes? And then we note the DA's objection. Can you again have the other minutes? Can we then have, yes, can I get any indication, the addition or amendment of the minutes?
Chair, I don't see my name in the minutes. Can somebody assist me? Where is the file?
Setlhoi and Ms. NN. Or do you have any other Setlhoi MSNN?
Chair, I didn't see the date. What is the date?
The 2nd of March.
Okay. No, I move for the adoption, Chair.
Where's my name?
Is the Honorable Setlhoi?
It is there, Member Setlhoi.
Oh, my eyes are losing me.
Honorable Tseki moves for the adoption of the minutes. And then can we get the...
I second the chair, the mover of the minutes.
The minutes has been seconded. Thank you very much. These were the minutes that we were supposed to have adopted in the last minute meeting. And because of time, we couldn't do that. It's 13:06, which is outside the allocation. We had an extra hour. I want to take this opportunity to thank honorable members.
I wanted to address you on very briefly, please.
Okay. What is that, Honorable Powell?
I just wanted to ask the Z list details that the committee runs until 12:30, and we as a committee just don't have enough time. All of our colleagues meet twice a week. We meet once. We've got 6 entities and the department, and this inability to really robustly engage is very difficult. On a Wednesday, Parliament starts at 3 o'clock, which means that we don't have that deadline of buses, getting buses, etc., for the 2 o'clock start. Is there any way that our secretary or your office could write to maybe Z-list the meeting until 1:30, so at least 4 hours as a committee every week, that we just have a little bit more time that we can genuinely engage on issues instead of having this very rushed approach? Because we've got the time given that Parliament starts at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, yes, Honorable Powell. Since we have done that, we have never even followed that 3 hours. Since we have started, our meeting have been overlapping for 4 hours. And deliberate, we are given the 3 hours by Parliament, but we usually overlap to 1 hour. If you check all the time, we've never finished before 1 in all the meetings that we had. Even if it was in 4 hours, we've been doing the 4 hours without actually giving up permission. And when terms of meeting twice and other committees meeting twice, I don't know of those committees. The directive from Parliament, the Chair of Chairs office, was that members of all committees, they are sitting in other committees. Therefore, we should use the slot allocated to us by Parliament, which is Wednesday. That's why we've been doing that. You'd remember when we were still human settlement, water and sanitation, we've been trying to request more dates to meet even after hours in the evening, but at some point they were rejected. And it was even emphasized, if you can access the minutes of the chairs of chairs, you can see that it was emphasized that we were given 3 hours, and is the gesture of the chair to overlap for 4 hours, which and taking in cognizance that we must allow members to raise questions and department response to those questions. So it's not my making. I think what you should do, we even raise it ourselves through the Chief Whips Forum, ask the Chief Whip whether we cannot get extra days, and it was indicated that it's not possible because unlike me and you, other members are serving in other committees, which they have to prepare and become useful in those committees. It's me probably and you that was stationed in one committee. Other members, they are doubling their committee. The others have 3 committees in that regard. So we've tried, even when we're still human settlement, water and sanitation, we've tried that to get more time, and we were warned around those issues.
Chair, my question
we've been trying. I'm saying 4 hours now. We're doing 4 hours now.
But
there's no need to apply.
But it gives you the power to call the meeting short at 12:30. So that's why the request is that we Z-list until 12:30, which means that officials are in the meeting until 1:30. It's a full extra hour, which means that we won't have to submit written questions. What I'm asking is that
I'm saying, Honorable Power, we have requested extra time. We're told it's only 3 hours.
Okay, I'll write my Chief Whip and bring it up if they're not listening. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much, honorable members. and your availability, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Recording stopped.